describe the hosts where most of this happened. The entire facility is fenced off. There is employees and contractors. Around the back there are 2 gates, one for truckers and the other for what is called a yard dog. Basically our own private truckers who work truckers on sides. Across the street is locked. This is where drivers who are over their time could go to sleep. The first gate had a small shack, manned by 2 people. The other one had a smaller shack we called Gate 2. These experiences happened back in Gate 2. This first experience happened to a friend of mine. That gate it would take about 30 minutes on foot, but maybe 10 minutes in a car. So normally we used our own cars to drive it and get it done faster.
So it's kind of loud.
It was my friend's turn, let's call him CM, to do his rounds. He drove off, and about 2 minutes later, he already came back, and he was broken down into tears. He was a co-worker and a close friend of mine, so right away I asked him what was wrong. He told me.
Was there a ghost?
I drove through this mist. It was like an
Sound
awful
help!
fog, and suddenly I heard some strange music. I was just overwhelmed with utter sadness. Honestly, I felt the urge to kill myself.
Oh,
so
alright.
I had to come back.
Yeah, no.
I can't go back out there, man. After he told me this, he flat out refused to go on any more patrols that night. Though soon afterwards, other guards and myself would not blame him. One cool night,
Oh, wow,
I
that's
decided
good.
to do the patrol on foot, and I had a bright flashlight with me. As I walked along rows upon rows of empty trailers, I heard loud banging coming from inside one.
Not banging!
Now, it's not unheard of to have vagabonds and animals that had climbed into the trailers, and part of my job was to check for them.
Ah,
If we found anyone like that, we would call the proper authorities for the situation.
yeah, no.
I walked up to the trailer and peeked inside. But as soon as I did, the banging stopped. As I looked around with my flashlight,
Whoop.
the trailer was completely empty.
Dang
This
it.
sent a chill down my spine and gave me goosebumps. I decided to walk away since technically there was nothing there. As I got to the front of the trailer, I heard this laugh that chilled me to the core.
Not spooky
and
laughter.
filled me with fear. Immediately, I ran back to the guard shack, and then I swore never to do the patrols again.
Yeah, no. Once you saw him laughing, I'd be like,
On
nope.
another night,
Nope.
I was with a female guard, who we simply called Sarge, due to her
Sarge.
ranking and hard to remember name.
Your name's too hard to
We were
remember,
sitting and
Sarge.
talking, just passing the time. We suddenly saw a humanoid figure
Oh, it's
standing
Thunderman.
square in the middle of the unlit lot. He seemed to
Spooky.
stand still until we both began staring at him. Then he raised his arms towards us and started to try to wave us down.
Oh, that was
But
a zombie.
his movements were, for a lack of better terms, off. It
Skinwalker.
didn't look quite right, but his voice was what really got our attention.
Ooh.
In a loud, monotone voice, he shouted to us, "Help me! I need some help."
Okay, zombie.
It was like a bored high schooler was being
Bored high schooler!
from a play. Sarge handed me a
Boy, high
flashlight
schooler.
and told me to go investigate.
No.
She said she'd watch my back, that she
How
would
about-
call the emergency services if needed.
How about you do
I
it, Sarge?
started to walk over, and the man was gone.
Oh, God, he's a
Still,
ghost.
I had to investigate further. I went to the lot.
Zombie
and
ghost.
one vehicle had
Double
its
dead.
lights on, so I knocked on the door and waited. And after a moment, a man answered. "Have you seen anyone out here?" I asked him, wondering if he was playing a prank on me.
Yeah, asshole.
"No, sir. I'm the only one here who seems to be up at the moment." He replied in a voice completely different than the one we heard from the figure. This man's
Well, the
voice
image got
actually
weird
had emotion
fuzzy
and
there for a
expression in
second.
it. I started walking back to the shack, and the instant I turned around, all the dogs in the neighborhood began barking for no reason. When I got back inside the shack, Sarge looked at me and asked,
Yes.
"Why didn't we follow them?" I was confused. "What do you mean, Sarge?"
The
"They were gone
dogs.
when I got there," I said. She shook her head. "No, they were standing there until you started to walk across the street. Then they went behind the closest trailer." Again, chills flooded over my body. Sarge and I talked about this for a few nights afterward, trying to figure out who or what that was. On another occasion, I was at the new gate, and Sarge was on her patrol. She came to check on me. Most nights were dead except for maybe 2 hours total, so we would spend time watching YouTube on our phones. At one point, she smacked the window and startled me as I was lost in some cartoon.
Rude.
I opened the window, then she asked me, "Who's with?" and then she stopped. She just vacantly stared at the empty doorway to gate 2's small bathroom. The next words out of her mouth were,
Uh-oh.
"I swear to God, there was someone behind you."
Ooh,
Even when I
spook.
smacked the window, they were standing there. I thought she was still trying to startle me, but the look on her face was one of worry, a look of confusion and fear.
I
Like on
didn't
the
see
night
anyone.
We saw that man in the lot. After that, she was quiet the rest of the night, and sadly, only a few weeks later,
Quit.
she quit. After that, I took her position as sergeant. There was a lot of change in the orders.
Interesting.
I would be in the main office, and once a night I'd do a foot patrol of all the posts. This would take about an hour, and I would carry a wand with me, like the kind
Wand?
you see flight crews use to guide planes.
Oh,
for takeoff
that
in
thing.
Movies. I would do the patrols around the same
The
time
weird light
every
cone
night.
thing.
One night before I began my patrols, I receive a call, and the guard at the back gate is surprised when I answered.
What do you mean?
"If you're on the phone, who's watching us?" she said.
But
in
whose
a thin
phone?
voice. A bit of panic was slowly creeping in. To ease her mind, I told her that I would look on the cameras.
Stop that, Kiko.
They gave me the figure's location. I checked all 3 cameras that covered the area, and no one was there. But she continued, I can see him. He's standing right there. We thought it was you just watching us creepily, trying to freak us out." The panic was now apparent in her voice as I checked all the cameras over and over. I didn't see a soul on a single one. No one on any of the outside cameras either.
Ooh.
The other guard hung up and refused to pick up the phone the rest of the night.
Nope.
When the next shift arrived, she left in a hurry, and she never showed
No.
up for her next shift.
No. Stop.
These are just a few of the strange things we saw there. Other guards told me stories of their encounters, but those are their stories to tell. Just remember, security guards see more than just shoplifters and loiterers.
Apparently
also
they see
the
ghosts.
things that go bump in the night.
Okay, kid.
Number 2.
Oh, thank you.
Security job. Submitted by Tommy.
Very descriptive. Security.
I work in cleaning services, and I do security up in the hills of Los Angeles, in an old Christian church. I
Sorry.
work the graveyard hours, and with that said, I'll start off by adding
Graveyard.
that this
Excuse me.
Christian church school is specifically in a remote area in the hills of Turnbull Canyon, which is already famous for its paranormal happenings. This experience happened to me around Christmas of 2015. I was
Christmas.
25 years old and had just started working for this company. Anyone who works the night shift as security knows it can be fun but mostly boring. But it can be creepy when things get strange. You never know when you can possibly be the victim of some lunatic or some paranormal things. The thoughts of something happening to me were always on the back of my mind when I worked. As security,
So
I
what
spend
police
most of my
people are
time
so
either watching
scared
YouTube
of everything?
or browsing Facebook. My job is to keep intruders out of the school, for whatever reason.
Sounds bad enough to be
On
scared.
one
You can
particular night, I was walking around
Ghosts.
with my flashlight when I heard a loud sports car storm in through the front parking lot.
Stormin', excuse me?
It was busting donuts and blasting loud music.
Busting
It
what?
parks in a parking lot far from me, by the entrance.
How the hell does a car bust donuts?
He's a tall, bald-headed man. He looks middle-aged, and he was very, very drunk.
Yes.
I pointed my flashlight in his direction and
In your
explained to
eyes.
him that he couldn't be on the premises. At first he laughed and tried to convince me that it was okay. I shook my head, telling him he had to leave now, or I was calling the police. He tried to convince me to let him drink on the parking lot. What's wrong with this guy? I finally had enough.
Might be high.
And without hesitation, I called the police.
Yeah, screw you too,
This
man.
obviously infuriated this man. I still had my flashlight on him, and he yelled at me with rage, cursing at me for pointing the flashlight in his direction.
Oh, now you care.
And he began to call me all kinds of names, some I've never heard of.
Oh, no.
And no joke, the guy suddenly pulled out a freaking katana.
Oh, katana!
One of those samurai
Oh,
swords.
holy shit!
Began to walk over to me quickly, with that sword at the ready.
Oh,
Halfway
shit!
towards me, he turned around and ran back to his car, throwing the sword in the back seat.
Get out of here, you
At
Japanese
this point,
weeaboo.
I'm thinking this guy really was
Freaking
crazy.
Hikum
Back in his
crazy.
vehicle, the
No, he's
man
not
then
Hikumari.
drove
He
towards
doesn't
me
stay
as
inside
fast
all
as he
day.
could. I ran back to the church, my heart pounding like crazy, barely dodging getting run over by this lunatic. I was thinking, this freak has a sword and a car, and all I had
He was a
was a
katana!
flashlight. I didn't have a gun, and they didn't give me one for the job. So even though I was a guard, I was basically at the mercy of some crazed, drunk lunatic.
Holy shit!
Luckily, I did have the keys to every door in the church, so I went inside the office, locking everything up.
Oh shoot, that was lucky.
The
Get out
lights
of
to
here.
his car faded, so I peeked through the curtains of the nearby window, trying to get a look of what this guy was doing. Now he was kicking and
26
tearing up
more.
the church
20
flowers in a small
7
garden. I
8
was
26.
extremely mad. Just then I
Salt.
see flashing red and blue lights coming through the parking lot, and within seconds, I hear the officer telling this man to get on the ground, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, get on the ground, you crazy
Cautiously, with
katana,
my
you crazy.
hands up, I walked outside over to the police officer, so that the cops knew I was there.
And also
They
not
asked me a few
armed.
questions, and apparently the man was not only drunk, but he had also taken a large amount of bath salts.
He took bath salts!
Still worth
He
it.
is salty!
Only now I carry a handgun and plenty of ammo with me. I never want to be in a situation where I have to wait on the cops, like some sort of damsel in distress. No, if this happens again and I have to wait for the police, I'm going to be the one with the upper hand.
Yeah, don't get too trigger happy though, I mean, just be careful, you
Number
know.
3. Something was curious.
What?
Submitted by Nico.
Patos was a dog. Oh, okay, it
I
blew
work
up. Good.
security for a hospital on Oahu, Hawaii. Back during September of 2015, I was patrolling the hospital grounds around 10 in the morning. I was out back in the oldest building on the property. It's 100 years old, give or take. This building is only 1 story tall, but it's quite
Thank
long.
you.
It's split in half on the inside. One half has 2 conference rooms, and the other is cold storage.
Cold
And
storage?
both
What
sides
is
have
this?
their own alarm systems with motion detectors.
This is a
The
restaurant?
conference room side is deactivated during
Lab?
the day for use, while the storage side is armed day and night unless someone goes in and deactivates the alarms.
Uh-oh.
Both sides have their own exterior entrance.
Someone's gonna
No one
deactivate
uses
the alarm.
entrance on
I
the
can
storage
sense it.
side because the door is blocked on the inside. I enter the conference room side of the building, closing the door behind me. I walk down the hall to the center where the 2 halves meet and check the interior door leading to the storage side. This hall is shaped like the most irritating Tetris piece, so you walk, turn left, then right, and continue to the end. The door leading to the storage has a 10-digit keypad lock. After checking the door, I turn back. I'm almost back to the entrance
Yeah.
when I suddenly hear a click, click from the other end of the hall.
Oh no, not
I
clicking.
go back through
It's
the
an
blind
alien.
corner and see the door leading to storage is
Open.
now completely wide open,
Ooh.
swinging ajar on my side of the building.
They just wanted to get in the cold storage,
I open
man.
the door.
They're
All
hot.
the lights are still off. No sounds of footsteps, rustling, scurrying. Nothing. I even let out a confused hello. Loud and
Hello.
clear, but there was no response. The
YOLO.
building is old, wooden, and standing about 3 feet off the ground. So if anyone was there, I would have heard them moving somehow. I know I don't have the code to deactivate the alarm, but even still, I feel compelled to enter the room. To see
Compelled.
what happens. And I can't walk away either, because it's my job to make sure no one's inside.
Yep.
So I did what I had to. I stepped inside, and
Ooh.
the alarm is set off. It's loud and
Whoa.
blaring in my ears.
Uh-oh.
Right away,
he knows
I
you're
radio
there.
maintenance, asking for someone to come deactivate the alarm, and telling them it's just me. They asked what
Me,
happened
Mario.
to set it off. I told them that I had to enter the room, and when they asked why, I said the door opened on its own.
Or
Of
something.
course, they asked me to repeat what I just said, so I do.
Oh!
But they don't give me a response
Nice.
after that. Soon a maintenance employee shows up and deactivates the annoying alarm. We check the storage side together, but still there's no one there. I tell him again what happened.
Didn't trip the
and
alarms
he's as
then.
creeped out as I am.
Hmm.
This building is old, but the entrance I came through was closed, and all the windows have been sealed because there's AC in every room.
Right.
The windows of the storage side are boarded up from the outside, and even if I hadn't entered, the alarm still would have eventually been set off by the door being left open.
You know,
And if
'cause it's
someone
cold
entered that
storage.
room, They would have set the alarm off too. But whatever it was,
You left it
it
just
didn't.
left it open?
And this isn't a I accidentally left the door open kind of thing. This was a sealed door, ready to have a password entered to it before
Oh.
it released its locks and opened. I hadn't touched it.
Does that
but
mean
somehow
something knew the
someone
password?
opened that door.
It knew the password, just left it open? What the heck? That's creepy as heck!
Number 4.
Seriously
Horrifying
creepy!
Security guard job.
Unless there's a ghost.
Submitted by Lauren.
Lauren.
About 2 years ago, my mom volunteered me to help out the makeshift security team at my local high school for an upcoming cheer competition. This team was basically a bunch of dads and their daughters who stepped up, knowing they would be paid for basically standing at the exits doing nothing. I was the youngest out of the helpers in the group at the age of 12, running paperwork to the organizers back and forth throughout the school. When I was not doing that, I was patrolling the dark, empty hallways with my friend Sid,
Sid.
making sure no young teens were doing God knows what, plus keeping people out or redirecting them back to the cheer competition. The high school had hallways that were laid out like a labyrinth, that you could make one turn and you would become completely lost in the dark. Now keep in mind the hall lights are off, because the school was closed. The competition was happening outside. Though everything was dark, it never seemed scary to us, since we had been at that high school several times before, and the dark was we were, letting people through. Armed with flashlights on our phones and the bright yellow t-shirts on our backs that had the word staff written on them, we went into the dark hallways. At first, we thought finding this person would be easy, since you could hear the music from the competition, so it should be simple enough to follow it back to the doors. But as we kept walking further into the dark, deeper into the school through mysterious hallways, we realized this might be out of our hands. We continued walking until we came to the central courtyard of the school. We found a window weirdly wide open, with muddy footprints leading from it.
Oh,
to
muddy
the
footprints,
drain
great,
the night
alright.
before.
Well, girl's coming
My
for you.
friend Sid turned to me with a look of horror in her face, saying, "How could someone get into the school? The only other way was to climb over the roof."
They
My
obviously
stomach
through the window,
immediately got
apparently.
sick. This wasn't someone that was lost. This was someone who had broke in. I
Yeah.
was thinking, who would break into the school and why? Sid ended up calling the cheer organizers on her phone to
Stop!
ask what to do. They told us to get back to the main office. There they would call the police. Not even 2 seconds after we hung up the phone, someone or something threw a water bottle, or what we thought was a water bottle,
Asshole.
around the corner, nearly striking me in the face.
That's just rude.
Whoever threw the bottle had a strong but strange strength, since this bottle went skidding down the hall, about 20 yards behind us.
Whoa, alright.
Fear had finally set in for me, as we could easily see an outline of a man, or what
Nope.
looked like it, hunched around the corner.
Nope.
Slowly backing up, we turned,
Nope.
and we ran. Sid was ahead of me, and I was right behind her. All the while, we could hear something very large following us through the halls, and I could tell by its footsteps that it was gaining on us, fast. Now, I was never a fast runner.
I forgot I didn't
Fear,
take control of the
whoever was
shark.
catching me made me run through the pain as we came crashing down the hallway doors towards the cafeteria, right into the arms of one of the concerned organizers, and we were both in tears. Whoever or whatever that was following us was scared off when we met up with other people. We were brought back to the main office where we explained our story, not leaving out a single detail as the cops arrived. We were ordered to stay in the office as the cheer competition was put on hold, as several cops swarmed the building looking for the suspect. Sadly, whoever it was, they never found them, and the thought of them still being out there made me sick to my stomach. My parents never volunteered me for this job again, and I lost contact with Sydney, who seemed more shaken up than me for some reason. So I never knew
Probably
if there
because
was more
there's
to
a
her
guy
side
with a
of the
water
story.
ball trying to kill you.
I don't know if this crazy guy was trying to kidnap us or hurt us. I just hope
I
we never
think he was
come
trying to
face
hurt you.
face with him again.
Otherwise, he wouldn't just throw that water ball at you, you know? I mean, he would have been like sneak, you know?
Number 5, The Babbling Shadow.
Oh, no.
Submitted by Tom.
The babbling brook shadow.
I worked the night shift as security. I was at a location in a small town for about 2 months. There was a main building and a small guard building outside, where everyone had to drive through to get to the other building. My nights mostly consisted of watching these CCTV monitors, and on nights when no one else was there, I would patrol the outside area and inside of the building. Well, one night, I was looking through the camera footage as it played live, and I saw some sort of orb appear on camera. The camera outside the side of the guard building.
Or really?
I thought it was a bug in the footage, or something like that, until I realized it was just floating there. I looked outside to see if a puddle of water was reflecting anything, but my area is in a drought, and there hasn't been rain in days.
Yay.
I wrote it off as a camera glitch, until the orb began to change shape.
What?
And I soon saw a mist-like figure appear to be standing directly across the little road that ran past the shack. I looked out the window to the exact spot it should have been, but there was nothing there. I grabbed my cell phone and began to record it with my camera. This is a big no-no when working security. I filmed the figure on the screen for a bit, and suddenly the figure disappeared. This was not anything more than creepy, but I did message the video to my fiancée and her sister, who
Really?
said that it was nothing.
Yeah.
The only thing haunted was the quality of footage on my cell phone.
That's cute.
I wrote it off as nothing until October 8th of 2016. I was watching the monitors again late at night after finishing a patrol. As I watched the main building's motion sensor door open and close right as I looked over that camera feed, this shouldn't have been possible. There was nothing there. No wind blowing leaves by. No animals or people.
Yay.
No reason that the door's motion sensor should have went off. Immediately, I was filled with dread, and something told me that I was being watched.
Uh-oh.
Then the clicking started.
Oh no.
It sounded like someone was flipping the light switches on and off.
Rude.
However, the lights remained on.
Oh.
Then I realized it was coming from the other side of the dropped ceiling. Then another started, and another. The noise multiplied, until there was about 6 different clicking noises in the ceiling.
Oh
all
no.
out of sync, moving around in there.
Stop clicking.
I reached into my pocket.
There's like
and
50
grabbed
aliens in
my
there.
multi-tool. I convinced myself not to give in to this fear that was grasping me. I did not leave, and I even tried to get a look at what was making the noises. As suddenly as all of that started, there was just one last click, and it was all silent
Oh,
again.
they're taking photos.
The fear and dread left with it, and I sat there nervously watching the cameras
Weird.
until my relief showed up. That was a very terrifying night. I've experienced a lot of strange things in my life, but this was the most dreadful and terrifying moment I've had. Number 6. Chains and Shadows.
Chains.
Submitted by Brian Watson.
Oh, so it wasn't babbling, it was just clicking. It's the difference between clicking and babbling, thank you.
I've been a security guard for 15 years, and in that time I've worked a lot of different places, from air-conditioned office jobs to high-crime retail areas and bars. I've had to deal with everything, from fistfights to even being shot at one occasion. But those are the things you accept as a possibility when you work in security. The dangers you prepare yourself for. It's a different story when the threat you face isn't made of flesh and blood. I had worked for this one particular security company for a few years. It was a smaller company, but it was by far the best I'd ever worked for. The other guards were great, and the working conditions were not bad at all. I'd been there for a year or so, before I was promoted to supervisor. Part of my tasks included checking on the other guards assigned to my post. That post was a shipyard, in a small place called Bayou La Batre, in Alabama.
Ah, stop it, screen. Jesus.
Anyway, I was making my rounds and checking on my night guard. Let's call him Jake. Jake was the company's range officer and weapons expert. He's a big guy who was always ready for a fight. But this night was different. Jake was sitting in his truck on the yard when I arrived. His eyes were...
Somebody make up who's gonna get over there.
He was shaken up. Jake,
Jesus.
of all people, I thought. When I asked what was wrong, he simply said, "There's something wrong with this place. I've been hearing things all night." "Like what?" I asked. "Well, chains," he replied. "Chains?" "Yes, chains."
Ah,
For those
stop.
unfamiliar with shipyards, they are full of heavy equipment,
Stop.
building machines, cranes, and the ubiquitous chain fall. This is basically a chain and pulley system, used to lift and move heavy objects. They require a person to pull the chain and lift it. According to Jake, he was hearing this happen, but there was no one else here. Now, again, I've been working security for years. At that time, I dealt with a lot of strange noises, and more often than not, it's some stray or wild animal getting into something they shouldn't be. Stray dogs and cats are a familiar sight in the bayou, so I was ready to believe that that's what he heard. So we both approached the warehouse, where he had heard those chains. As we approached, we both began to hear the telltale sound of chains.
Just charge it, you
It was as if
stupid hoe.
someone had just pulled the chains as hard as they could, like the Hulk was playing with a set of chains like jump rope. Both Jake's and my hands fell to our guns. We moved closer, cautiously, to see what had happened. Slowly, I entered the warehouse. But there was nothing there. No chains, no cats, no intruders.
No cats?
When I looked back, I noticed Jake
What
was
about dogs,
still
though?
standing outside. I thought he was right behind me to back me up.
Hey, Jake, what
but
are you
he was
doing?
having none of it. You really just let me go in there alone like that? I asked.
Jake.
You heard those chains. Only the two of us are here. Something pulled those chains.
You
And it's
pussy.
something that I don't want to mess with. I was
Weenie.
trying to calm him down. Sure, the sound was weird. Even weirder when I couldn't find any chain falls. But there was always an explanation. There had to be. I did my best to calm him down, and to keep my composure as his supervisor. As we talked, it happened again. But this time, it sounded like multiple chains were being pulled at the same time. Both Jake and I heard it, and Jake had had enough.
Jake's
He
outie.
said he was going to finish this shift and never come back to the yard. The following day, I followed up with the warehouse supervisor. I told them about the noises we heard. I said that they might want to check to make sure they didn't have a rodent infestation or some malfunctioning equipment. But the supervisor just smiled at me. They said, "That wasn't any equipment. That's the ghost. And I see you finally met him." Ghost? I asked.
Great, okay, thanks. You're
Definitely.
haunted.
We've all
Wonderful.
had experiences here.
Don't smile at me.
Sometimes
It's not
it moves
funny.
things, other times it will touch you. Some people have claimed to see a shadow walking around.
This one was just mad that you were
but it
fighting,
won't
so I
hurt
just
you
said salty.
if you leave it alone. I was stunned. They said this as a matter of fact, as if it was a normal occurrence.
Hey, how about this ghost
I
protect the
couldn't
warehouse?
believe what I was hearing. Well, Jake never did work that yard again, but I continued to.
Is he your
In
friend?
my time there, I learned that the supervisor was right. There was something there.
He was nice, though.
I spent many nights seeing shadows that I couldn't explain.
He's nice,
And
though.
being alone and hearing those chains was a commonplace thing. But I never got hurt, and I never
He's-
tried to pursue it.
He's a great
Whatever
ghost.
is there is real, and if it can pull chains and walk around, I wonder what else it could do.
Let's just screw with you, that's
I
good.
wonder what it could do to someone who got a little too curious.
Or is an asshole. You know.
If you're scared of the dark, just remember that there are people out there who work 8 to 12-hour shifts alone
In the
an
dark.
old, dark building every day. These are the people you know must have seen something during their careers.
Whether it's
But
just the
you're
crazy.
almost too afraid to ask, because some things might just be too creepy to hear. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to send us your doppelganger or double horror stories.
Oops,
soon
why'd I
at
do that? Dang it.
darknessprevails.org. Plus, a big thanks goes out to our newest patron, Jennifer Wadier. Thank you. Stay safe and stay creepy. Vacation Squad, all you gotta do is like and share this video, and make sure you stay subscribed, so you never miss a scary story.
Spoop.
Sometimes security keeps people out, and sometimes it keeps things in. This world is a strange one. Security guards have often awkward and dangerous jobs. Some of them deal with unpredictable people, while others tend to... Notification Squad, all you gotta do is like and share this video, and make sure you stay subscribed, so you never miss a scary story.
Spoop time.
Do you hear that? The sound of your closet door slowly opening.
My closet
This
door's
world
open. Joke's
is
on
a
you.
strange one. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and keep up the great work. While this video isn't exactly father-related, but
I
any
hope not.
father,
It's just
or any
Ghost
person
Father.
for that matter, knows how creepy a closet can be. They are small rooms where we place our clothes and other things.
They're smelly shit.
But hearing your closet door open at night is impossibly terrifying. So, let's see what happens when closets become the places of real-life horror. But first, check out patreon.com/darknessprevails to see how to unlock hours of bonus episodes. Also, are you a security guard? I'd love to hear your creepiest experience on the job and put it in a future video. Just send me your stories at darknessprevails.org. Now, what secrets hide in your closet? Number 1. Breathe.
Oh no,
Submitted by
not breathing.
Rowan C.
Okay, please don't jerk door. That's creepy.
I had this experience when I was 7 years old. I'm 14 now. The experience is still clear as day in my brain, and I've thought about it countless times since then, wondering what exactly happened to me that day. I was visited by something or someone. At the time, I slept in my parents' room, as we were renting part of the house out to get some extra money. My older brother took over my room. The roommate stayed in my brother's room, leaving me to sleep in my mother and father's oddly large closet. We lived in a large
Your
two-story
closet
house at the
is
time,
huge.
and I was
It's
a
a walk-in
small
closet.
child, so a small bed and my few things fit inside this large closet with ease. It was late at night, possibly almost midnight, and I was having a lot of trouble sleeping, considering we had some fun things planned for the next day. So I laid there quietly, trying my best to go to sleep. As my eyes began to droop, I felt very cold despite the hot summer night, and the blankets were up to my neck. I thought that maybe my mom or brother had turned on the AC, since both of them were both still up and downstairs in the living room. The cold gave me goosebumps, and I couldn't help but shiver, getting colder by the second.
Oh no.
Now this was bizarre, because the AC had never made me shiver before.
Really?
It had never been this cold in the house.
The
So I
AC
was
has never
beginning to
made
get
you shiver?
confused as to how it got that cold. I tried my best
Well,
to ignore the cold.
Maybe your
atmosphere,
parents decided to turn the
but then
thermostat
I
up.
realized that I wasn't
down.
hearing the AC.
What?
This made me anxious.
Yeah, that made me
Because
uncomfortable.
anywhere you go in the house, when the AC is on,
Yeah, you hear
the
it.
buzz of it working. This
Yeah.
really struck anxiety.
Yeah.
into me. I
You hear
tried
the
to
sound,
brush
the
it
sound of
off,
the ghost. I mean,
tried
the
to ignore
gust.
it, tried to explain it away, but I couldn't. And only moments later, I began to hear little huffing sounds by my ear, and the rush of air that came with it was even colder than the air around me.
Oh no,
and it
she's
carried a
trying to
putrid smell.
make you cool.
Something or someone was breathing on me.
Oh, that's rude.
I shut my eyes tight, and I couldn't stop myself from whimpering. I tried not to tremble in fear as the small huffing continued. The huffing continued to get closer.
It's the
by
big
the
bad
second.
wolf.
I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry louder, but I didn't. I stayed quiet, and I tried not to let myself get too worked up, considering I'm a pretty anxious guy.
Shpoop.
Just as I thought the huffs had stopped, I then heard very clear, very audible breathing. It sounded like whoever or whatever it was no longer trying to conceal its breathing. It was louder now, as if it wanted to be heard.
Oh no.
Normally, children would quickly bury themselves under the covers. I was never quite the normal child. I'm not saying I was crazy, just unique. So instead, I kept my
Hope
eyes
that's everyone.
tight shut and my body tensed. If I had to try to place the sound, the breathing sounded like that of a little girl's,
Oh no.
maybe 4 or 5 years old.
It's always
It was
girls.
still on my ear, but I smelt that putrid odor once more. The breathing was slow and heavy,
Yay.
but loud and clear. All while this happened, I was panicking inside. My inner voice was screaming, crying, begging me to try to call out for help, but I couldn't make a sound, not even a whimper. So I lay there in silence, in the dark, tears streaming down my face. It was the most horrifying moment of my life. After
Still.
what felt like
Could
centuries,
you guys please stop moving
the
out of the way?
breathing finally stopped. And as soon as it did, the room began to warm up again, and soon I felt safe enough to slowly open my eyes and sit up in bed. I looked around the walk-in closet, but everything was still so dark, so I slowly crawled to the foot of the bed. Then I reached for the light switch. I turned the light on and looked around the small closet. I didn't see a thing, so I stood up and slowly looked under my bed. And to my mom,
My internet connection keeps falling out.
she saw me, then asked, "Honey, why are you awake?" I hesitated, thinking over my words carefully, but I decided to come straight out with it. "There was breathing in my ear, Mom. It sounded like a little girl," I said to her, my look of anxiety from before returning at the memory of the smell, the feel, and the sound of those breaths. My brother, who was 12 or 13 at the time, just rolled his eyes and said, "It's just your imagination, stupid." I glared at him, almost raising my voice. I didn't imagine it. I heard it. I could even smell it. I felt it right in my ear. Did you guys not feel how cold it got? Now I was panicking. I was worried that they wouldn't believe me. My mother calmed me down, muttering to my brother to be quiet. Then she looked at me. "It's summer, sweetheart, and the AC isn't even running," she said softly, smiling, thinking that that would make me feel better. I didn't have it. I was upset. They didn't believe me. And thinking back on it, I realized not too many people would believe a 7-year-old at 12 in the morning. And ever since then, I've had a curiosity with the paranormal. Every chance I got when I was on the internet, I would research different spirits and look up different clips and movies that I could find. But nothing I've ever heard or read was more chilling than what I experienced. But of course they wouldn't be. I was 7, an extremely anxious child, and it happened to me. I wasn't just reading or hearing about it. I experienced it. I never doubted it was real for a second. And yes, I've heard of sleep paralysis, and that wasn't this. I could very easily move during the experience, and before I heard the huffing, I had tossed and turned for a bit, and that was all while the cold air got colder by the second. I know this was no hallucination. Sometimes I wonder,
A really vivid dream, you sure
who
not?
was this little girl, and why did she only visit me? And was I wrong? Was she even a little girl at all? I'll always have these
Damn it.
questions, since I don't think I'll ever have any answers. Though deep down, I feel like maybe I don't want to know. Because something tells me the truth could be so chilling that I wouldn't be able to breathe. Number 2. Paranormal Occurrences. Submitted by Cheyenne. In my life, I've had a few paranormal experiences. Most were small and minor things, like lights flickering, things falling over, or items being lost, then found in odd places. But I've had 3 experiences that left me scarred forever. The first one I had was when I was around 9 or 10 years old. We had moved into this house near an abandoned train track and a warehouse of some sort. This house always had an eerie kind of vibe to it. Well, it was just to me, I guess, because no one else in the house ever felt that way. We've only lived in this house for a few months when the experience took place, and before the experience, nothing really happened. The only really strange things at the time were the fact that my bedroom door had nails in it, as if someone were trying to trap themselves in my room, or keep someone out. Plus, there was this weird rope that swung on the tree in the backyard. It was cut at a point, so I always guessed that a tire swing had been hung there. Anyway, it was on a normal school night. I had a set bedtime, and it was time for me to go to bed. Like most children, I hated the dark, so I'd have the TV on until I fell asleep, or I'd at least have the radio going. The radio helped as well, because music calmed me down. On this particular night, however, I hadn't done as I was told. I hadn't cleaned up my bedroom earlier, so the privilege of having the TV or radio on at night was taken away for a while. So I tried to fall asleep that night, but I couldn't. I was only in bed for a few minutes, completely wide awake, when I suddenly and very clearly heard the creaking of my closet door beginning to open. I thought nothing of it. Thinking
Did you?
that it was my cat, Magic. That is,
Magic, stop it.
until I remembered that I hadn't brought Magic with me into my room this night. It continued to creak open, terribly slow. I scared myself a little bit and threw the covers over my head. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then I heard the closet door slam open and something run under my bed. It didn't sound big, but it wasn't small either. And seconds after I heard it crawl under my bed, something began to push on the mattresses below me. It was pushing me hard and violently, as if it was trying to knock me off my bed. Some over and over, louder and louder. Then my bed began to shake like crazy. Now it felt like someone or something was on my bed.
Bed intensifies.
Jumping up and down as hard as they could. And needless to say, I was beyond terrified at this point, as I lay there shaking and crying. This experience lasted a good 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. I laid still for a few more moments before working up the courage to pull the covers down from my face and sit up. The moment I did, I looked around the room. It wasn't as dark anymore, as my eyes had adapted to the darkness, and I felt more calm.
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing in my room, and everything was quiet again. I looked over at my bedroom door. There's a small hole in it, where a deadbolt lock used to be. My dad took it off because I kept locking it. Now, when I
Why?
looked over to this hole,
Your dad took off the
my
lock
view,
for
the
some
hall
reason.
light was on,
Why?
and all I could see was the outline of a person. It was like a shadow. This shadowy thing was staring at me, then turned to the door to the left of mine, and disappeared into it. My heart jumped and sank into my stomach. The door next to my bedroom leads to the attic. The scariest part about that is the fact that there has been a master lock on that door since we had moved in. So none of us knew what was beyond it. Fortunately,
great.
we moved out of that house because of rent problems. This brings me to my second encounter I had. This happened just 2 years ago. In October, I was 18 years old, and I had a boyfriend named Craig. It was a pretty normal day, so we hung out with my friend Heather. Later that night, when we were parting ways, just after Heather left, Craig pulled me to the side and told me he had to tell me something. He said that that night he saw something behind Heather, something like a shadow of a man. No features, just an outline filled in.
Oof.
This scared the hell out of me. It was too similar to the experience from my closet that one night.
Oh, yeah.
I was worried that something had followed me from that old house. He told me he had an
It
idea.
follows.
The next time we all hanged out, Craig brought this cross necklace with him and gave it to Heather to wear. She was
Thanks, bro.
suspicious of the sudden gift, but Craig said to consider it an early birthday present. Even still, she wouldn't wear it, and I tried my best to convince her to wear the necklace, but she still required a reason.
Why?
I felt
Just
I
wear
had
it.
no other choice than to just come out with it. So I told her what Craig was trying
It's
to
a
do.
free shit.
I
Why not
told her
wear
about
it?
the shadow thing Craig said he saw. She rolled her eyes and left. However, just an hour or so after I told Heather Craig's plan, I received a text from Craig. He was panicky, very flustered and shaken up. He said that things were happening at his house all of a sudden. When he got home, all the birds were let out of their cages.
What? Rude.
Things were suddenly falling over when he walked past.
Asshole.
And he says he swore the walls were beginning to shake.
Okay, the ghost is
He
being an
told me
asshole
he felt
now.
like he was going to pass out. After he said that, he didn't answer again for 10 minutes, and I was freaking out the whole time. Luckily, eventually, I did get another message, but when I read it, my heart sank.
It was a ghost.
It read, "Craig isn't here."
What?
I looked at it, then I replied that
Craig, what
was
the hell are you
funny.
doing?
Suddenly, one after the other, I received 49 messages telling me the same thing over and over again.
Craig isn't there?
Craig isn't here.
Alright, Craig.
Isn't here.
Stop it.
I was so
Go
scared
stop
and shaken.
texting with the
I
phone.
replied, "What do you want?"
Also, why are you
But there
texting with
was
Craig's
no
phone?
reply.
Stop
I
that.
stared at my phone out of nowhere.
Did you steal it? He
expecting
stole his
a
phone,
message
didn't he?
back at any second. All was too quiet when I suddenly heard something that sent chills down my spine.
Yeah?
My bedroom's closet door was opening.
Uh-oh.
Before it could open all the way, I ran over to it and blocked it with a chair in my room.
Good idea.
I tossed my phone onto the side table.
That
I
noise.
lay there for hours, until eventually I fell asleep. When I next saw Craig again, we looked at each other's text conversations, but apparently Craig's texts had been wiped clean, and all my phone would
good.
show were my texts back to him. It was odd, and it was very, very creepy. And finally, my last encounter. This one didn't scare me as much as it made me angry. This spirit or entity or whatever, it had my blood boiling.
Because
It
being an
happened only
asshole.
a few months ago. Craig and I had moved in together at an apartment plaza. We were having a baby, and I had just had a C-section to bring our little girl into the world.
Wait, you're a girl?
Things were really looking up.
This is awkward.
It was our first place, so the apartment was small, but it was quiet, and nothing strange or terrible had really happened there. However, that wasn't until I came back home from the hospital. It seemed like the moment we came back in, the atmosphere in the home became very eerie, and I felt like someone was there with us.
Oh no.
Especially on the second floor, in our bedroom.
Oh, not on the second
Specifically
floor?
That freaking closet. Every time we bring our daughter upstairs to sleep, she wouldn't sleep. Instead, she'd fuss and cry and be inconsolable. It didn't take long for me to notice that she would stare at the closet door.
Oh
in
no,
our
he's
bedroom,
pissing off the baby.
and her face would contort with fear and confusion, before, of course, erupting into tears. Whatever she would see, it would make her cry harder and louder.
Because
One
goes
night
being
in
a dingus.
particular, I'd gotten my daughter to fall asleep in my arms downstairs. Craig and I brought her upstairs quietly, and I laid her carefully down on the bed. As soon as her little head hit the pillow, she woke up and was wide awake. That scared me, especially when her little eyes wandered right over to the closet door. I
Wonderful.
could see her face build up with fear. She was staring directly at the door, and she began to wail. Then something happened. Her leg lifted a bit in the air, and she was dragged to the side of the bed.
Asshole!
All at once I jumped
Stop
to her
that.
and grabbed a hold of my daughter. I pulled her close
Ghost
to me
is being a
hard,
dingus.
crying. I looked over to Craig and told him to grab the pillows and blankets.
Oh,
We
yeah.
ran downstairs, and the moment we did, our daughter was immediately calm. I sat down on the
Come
couch
think of
and
it,
rocked her
these
to
two
sleep.
know about this
For the
ghost
rest
now,
of
so
our
they're both
time in that
chill with the whole
apartment,
thing.
We did not sleep in that bedroom again.
Yeah, Craig, why? I mean, Ghost, why? Why do you have to do this?
Number 3. The School of Horrors.
School?
Submitted by Sophia G.
Spooky school closet.
I had just enrolled in a new charter school in California. I'd left all of my old friends behind in Colorado, so it was an emotional time for me. The bright side, though, was that we were going to be closer to our family, and soon I would make new friends. When I first
Oh,
arrived
we went over
at the
it.
new school, lots of people right away would warn me about
Yeah.
the dark corner of the hallway on the 3rd floor.
Oh, yeah?
There was a story behind this.
Spooky?
Supposedly, there was a student who was repeatedly bullied, and on the day of prom,
They always
was
are.
forced and locked into the closet by some of the jock football players. On that same day, there was a fire on the 3rd floor,
Oh, of course it
and the
was.
student burned to death.
Oh.
That story always gave me chills, but I always thought it was some tall tale or ghost story to tell the new kids. Well, my
Well,
locker
yeah,
was on
don't
the
bully
3rd
people,
floor,
too. PSA.
which was just a recipe for disaster. I'd made several new friends already. My first hour class was on the first
Okay, what was
floor
that
of the
shark
school.
music?
None of my friends were in this class because
Shark.
they had study hall. So
Shark
before
ghost.
class started, I had to go upstairs to my locker, and my friend Alondra accompanied me.
Hi,
Since our
Alondra.
lockers are right next to each other.
Oh, okay.
And right down the same hallway was that dark corridor.
Okay.
The one that we were always warned about.
Don't go in.
As soon as she
Don't you
saw
do it.
and probably because we were alone in the hallway,
Don't you do it.
Alondra dared me to go into the dark closet.
Damn it,
and stay
Alondra.
in there for 5 minutes. I just rolled my eyes and said, "No, we gotta go to
7 minutes of heaven with the ghost.
She pressured me, saying that we had plenty of time.
I'm sorry.
Then she pulled out a $10 bill.
Oh,
Begging
shit,
me
$10.
I couldn't do it. As a student desperate for money, I entered the closet. This
Shit,
is where the
$10.
horror
I'm sold.
begins. I stood there in the closet, and my nose was immediately welcome with the smell of rotting and burnt things.
Okay,
I
at
swear
that point
the
I'd be like,
moment I
alright,
walked
that's
in
creepy.
there, I could smell burnt skin or flesh. The odor was so strong.
Coach is like, what are you
that
doing?
I almost threw up.
7 minutes heaven with
I
the
could barely
the,
hold back
the
my
old kid.
gag reflex. I switched on the lights when I eventually found them, but the moment they turned on, they flickered back off.
Rude.
The moment that happened, I thought, screw this,
Yeah,
it's not worth
nope.
$10, and I tried to open the door to get back out. But
You're
the
trapped
door
with me,
would
son.
not budge.
7 minutes
As if
heaven.
Some bulky person was leaning on the door from the outside.
Ah, Jock, you
I
bitch!
tried to scream, but I was petrified.
Ghost Jock, he
I
became a
tried the
ghost
doorknob
too.
Again, but was stung by a hot feeling. The closet began to get hotter and hotter by the second. I soon felt sweat dripping from my body. It was like I was in a sauna, and the temperature was still rising.
Whew.
Just as I was beginning to think I wouldn't make it out of this room, Alondra opened the closet door, and everything went back to normal.
Hey, Alondra.
Alondra stood there, seeing me drenched in sweat all over, with this look of terror in my eyes.
Did she give you the
That
$10?
was easily the scariest
She
encounter
better have given you
of
those
my life.
$10. Like, damn.
Immediately after, I requested to switch lockers to the first floor, and luckily they granted my request, and I never went back to that hallway again.
Alondra, you're
From
unfriended
now
and you
on,
better
I
give me
know
those
if
$10.
Something doesn't feel right. It probably isn't right, and I should always trust my gut instinct.
Spoop. Spoop.
Number 4. The Call. Submitted by
The Call?
Anonymous.
Ring, ring,
My brother and I work for our local police department. I'm a field
27.
training officer for the Law Enforcement Explorer program, while my brother is a community service officer for the department. Honestly, we love what we do. And don't get me wrong, there are always ups and downs to any job. But what happened on this particular day, we'll never forget. It was a very quiet Thursday morning. My brother had joined me in a squad car, Unit 20, as we were driving down an older neighborhood. We were in the middle of having a conversation about me leaving to join the Marine Corps, and him possibly going to the police academy.
Okay,
When
cool.
we suddenly heard an officer from dispatch through the radio. 707, respond to a 1015.
1015?
Disturbance.
Civic,
At
okay.
2234 Columbus Avenue. I decided to inquire about the call since we were nearby.
Call?
Apparently, a realtor was showing a house to a couple. When they looked into a closet, they found a woman with black hair and a white nightgown.
What the
She
hell?
laid there covering her face, crying in the corner.
Oh, okay.
It
Nope.
really freaked them out.
Nope.
Chills were sent down my spine and my brother's when we heard it.
Ah,
We
yeah.
looked at each other in shock. Only one other officer was on his way, so we decided to give him some backup to make sure everything was in check.
Okay, thanks, Brents.
We met the officer at the house, and the realtor told us that she was still in there.
Oh, wonderful.
In
Oh.
fact, when we walked up, we could very clearly hear the crying coming from the house.
Ooh.
And again, more chills went down my spine. We began to search the house, every room.
What if she said,
the
"It's my
attic,
house"?
Even the closet she was supposedly in. Yet all of the doors were secured and locked, and no one was in the house.
What?
We looked for points of forced entry because transients, the homeless, usually break into houses like these to get some temporary shelter. We searched the outside and around the neighborhood, but no one matched the description. We came back to the apartment and broke the news that she wasn't there. Then, before we left, we said to give us another call if they happened to see her again.
Okay,
We were wrapping
what
things
are
up,
you
and I
doing?
was about to climb back in the squad car, and I looked at the window.
Oh, God.
Clear as day, I see the woman standing there. I couldn't see her face, as her hair was long and blocking it. And when I turned to my brother to tell him, I turned back, and she was gone.
Oh, I thought she was going to be
Instead
right
of
next to
going
you.
back in as I
Shit.
should have, as part of the law enforcement,
Ah, nope.
we simply drove away. I've seen a lot happen in the 4 years I've been with the police
No,
department.
thanks.
And I've never seen or been to a ghost call like that. To all my brothers and sisters in blue, be safe out there. And don't ever go alone to suspicious calls like that one. I don't know who that lady was, or what her intentions
Just glad
were,
you were there with someone.
but I'm sure the couple the realtor was showing the house to won't be moving in anytime soon.
Yeah, don't get the ghost house.
And number 5, Crazy Aunt Agatha's Closet. submitted by Rain D. My great-grandmother came to America from Cornwall, a city on the very southern tip of England, during the early 1910s. She eventually settled in rural Arkansas. There she finished out her teen years and married her husband, a semi-wealthy proprietor of a local brewery.
It was really windy
It's
outside.
not in existence anymore, but back then everyone knew of Clack's Brew from Camden, Arkansas. Together they had 3 children, the oldest being my great-aunt Agatha, followed by my great-aunt Belle, and finally the youngest, my grandfather Iva, whom they playfully nicknamed Buddy. Agatha was older than her other 2 siblings, by what I'm guessing was 15 years. I'm told that Agatha greatly resented this, because she felt obligated to help raise her brother and sister, meaning she didn't get a chance to marry until she was in her mid or late 20s, which for that day and age was rather uncommon.
Really? 20?
After my
Man.
great-grandfather had died, my great-grandmother, great-aunt Belle, and my grandfather Iva all moved to the city of Mobile, Alabama. But my great-aunt Agatha opted to stay behind to live in the house she was born in. Now, as far back as I can personally remember, every Christmas and summer, we'd make the trek up to Camden to visit Aunt Agatha in the old house.
Oh, okay.
My aunt and grandfather called it the old home place, which was basically all I knew it as. I remember all of the really nice antiques all over this old 2-story farmhouse.
Cool.
Cast iron pots and skillets, old china dolls and Victorian plates, old clothing irons that you had to heat up on the stove in order to use. And I also very
Cool.
clearly remember the creepiest closet in the cellar. I found it all very
actually, give me a
historic
second.
and lovely. Over the years I noticed that Aunt Agatha lived alone, no husband or children, and I began to think that she was lonely. I mean, she didn't even have a cat or anything to keep her company.
She doesn't want a cat.
The more I thought about it, the whole thing became rather unnerving, so I did my best to put it out of my mind. One summer while we were visiting, I asked her, "Auntie, why did you never marry?" She was silent for a while, poured me a glass of lemonade, and said, "I had a husband once, but he left. I guess I wasn't enough for him." She looked really sad at that point, and I apologized for asking. Later that summer, she began to act really strange. My Aunt Belle and grandfather started to talk about how her mind was beginning to go. Come Christmas, it was obvious that she had Alzheimer's. She would pace back and forth in the hallway connected to the cellar, and then she would ramble things like, "The baby, what about the baby? Crying, the baby's crying in the closet. The closet." I
Baby?
woke up one night at her house to go to the bathroom, and I saw her in the hallway with a knife,
Whoa, shit.
staring me down with those cold, dead eyes. I froze dead in my tracks and nearly peed myself
Nope.
as she came at me with a knife, and as she approached, she let out this otherworldly hiss. I ran screaming to my grandpa, who took care of it. I'm not sure how exactly. Soon my Aunt Belle moved in to help take care of Agatha, and within a few years, Agatha passed away. We ended up staying at Old Home Place while we attended her funeral. I remember thinking how spooky her house was now. She'd scratched things into the wall, and there were bodily fluid stains from where she'd thrown her own mess at the walls.
Ew, the
She'd
shit.
even thrown it at Aunt Belle and the nurses on occasion. After the funeral, we all went back to Mobile, and not much was spoken of Aunt Agatha. I sometimes talk about all of us just moving to the old home place, because hey, it was a free house, right?
Right?
But neither my great-grandmother or anyone else wanted to deal with the mess of it all.
Yeah.
When I was 18, great-grandmother passed away, and we buried her next to her late husband in Camden. Of course, we stayed in the old home place once again, this time for a whole week after the funeral. My Aunt Belle had decided that they'd best clean it up, and finally make it somewhat livable, maybe even rent it out. During this stay, I was tasked with cleaning the thick layer of dust off of everything.
And shit.
Yeah, it wasn't a super fun job to say the least, but I got to keep a few of the trinkets that I liked, so it wasn't all bad. While I was cleaning that day, I turned down the hallway and I noticed the cellar door, and almost without thinking, I went to try and open it.
What?
I'd never been down there before, in all
Don't
the
do that.
Christmas and summers that I'd spent here, and I was suddenly stricken with curiosity. However, I found myself disappointed to find the door locked. I never thought I'd find a key in a house this big. So I forgot about it until a few days later, while my mom, grandpa, and aunt were out grabbing lunch. If you don't know, Arkansas has a few restaurants that are really great, and there's one place called Burgermeister that has a bacon cheeseburger to die for. Anyway, while they were out, I was picking through drawers in the kitchen, packing silverware and plates away, and I almost threw out an old iron key that I'd picked up into one of the
Iron key?
boxes.
Interesting.
Then it hit me that this old key might be the key to the cellar.
Yes, thank you, Kiko.
Excited, I immediately got up and went to go try the key on the old door, and luckily, it turned. My heart jumped as the lock clicked, and with a gentle push, the door slid open. The
So happy.
hinges let out a horrible creak, and I almost chickened out. Oh, come on, you're 18, I told myself.
18 or not, I wouldn't screw with the creaking door.
I
Thank you.
fumbled for a light switch on either side of the door. Finally, I found a pull chain in the darkness, and a dim hanging bulb lit the small cellar. It was about the size of a small walk-in closet, filled with boxes and stacks of newspapers from long before I was born. I almost turned around until something caught my eye. A closet on the far left side of the room. I felt compelled to walk over and open it, and when
Yay.
I did, I was almost knocked back by all the dust, the smell of mold and must that filled the
You
closet.
mold.
I looked in the dark closet and saw what appeared to be an old handbag. It was leather, with an old brass clasp. I knelt down and picked it up. The bag had a bit of weight to it, so I brought it into the light of the main cellar.
Plot twist, there's a head in the bag!
Inside, there was a lot of silk scarves, moldy, nasty-looking ones.
Well, I mean, they probably
Curiosity,
used to
I
look good.
began to unravel them, and then I saw it. 2 black eye sockets.
Oh,
a tiny skull, looking back at me.
Oh, shit.
I dropped the
So
bag
there
and
was a
ran upstairs,
body in there.
both dizzy from shock and disgust. I lost it and puked in the hallway, and then I ran outside to wait for my family to return, to tell them what I found. My family surmised that Great Aunt Agatha's husband had left her. She discovered that she was pregnant right after, and either she miscarried or had the baby and killed it to spare herself the trouble or heartbreak of raising the child of a man who'd abandoned her. Maybe the baby Agatha had been ranting about when she lost her mind was the skeletal remains hidden away in that closet for decades. My grandfather said after a few hours, "I'll take care of this." And together, he and Aunt Belle took the handbag containing the tiny skeleton, and they left. They were gone all night and the next morning, and I asked what they'd done with the baby. They said that it was taken care of, and to this day, I'm not really sure what they did with it. Either they dropped it off at the police station, or took it off into the vast wooded areas of Arkansas, and buried it somewhere.
I hope they did the last
I know
option.
that nothing was ever officially reported, though. Nothing ever came of it. Protecting the family name was very important to them, apparently more important than a proper burial of a nameless baby. I don't think we'll ever truly know what went down, and they both took the secret to the grave with them. Who knew such tiny and often pointless little rooms could be the scariest places in your house? I don't know about you, but I keep my doors closed. When
Keep
I
it
see
open.
a door just barely open, I can't help but imagine the demon creatures that are peeking through at me. These serial killers that wait for me to turn my back for too long. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to send us your security guard horror stories at darknessprevails.org. Thanks. Go throughout the woods. Above all, it didn't sound human, not in the slightest. We ran from there, back to the cabin, adrenaline pumping through our veins, and I was so scared, I nearly threw up. We checked Beverly's camera footage when we got back to safety, but all it contained was forest and the sound of crunching leaves as we walked. Even still, we didn't get much sleep that night. The next day, we were thankful it was our last day. We decided to stay in our cabins all day that day, and luckily nothing happened until that night. We got ready for bed and had just crawled into our bunks when the bathroom door opened and slammed on its own. Instantly, me and Beverly both grabbed our electronics and got together on the bed furthest from that closet. We knew we weren't alone in that room. As we stared at the closet, we suddenly saw a dark shadow pass in front. Almost makes me wish I could be on The Walking Dead myself. Come on, Rick, let me touch that beard.
Okay.
So, to get your own amazing post-apocalyptic skincare, go to zombielips.squarespace.com. Thanks, Zombielips. Going to the movies is one of my favorite things to do. Even if I've just feasted and gorged myself on dinner, I always buy popcorn. Even if it's just for the smell. Watching a film in theaters is just unbeatable. But if you've been the first in the room, or the last, you can't help but think about just how truly dark and eerie the place can be. Those red curtains, the shadows that surround you, who or what hides in the dark. Enjoy these allegedly true cinema scary stories.
Cinema
Don't
Sins.
forget to send us your airplane and airport scary stories soon at deathbyfear.com. Number 1. Creepy Movie Patron. Submitted by Bree Nick Garong.
Bree.
When I was in my senior year of high school, I took a part-time job working at the local movie theater. It paid reasonably well, enough for me to have a bit of pocket money. And despite the management's strange stance that high schoolers had nothing better to do in their spare time than work, I really did like the job. My coworkers were nice. I got to watch bits of the latest films during my break time, and I always came home smelling like popcorn. It was also my very first foray into the wild and maddening world of customer service, and as the months passed, I saw more than my fair share of rude, dense, and uncooperative, downright dickish customers. Now, most of them have faded into the background over time, but there was one experience I had that rattled me so badly that I still recall it now.
I thought he was
During
gonna
the
say I
run
stopped
of the
working there.
movie What Lies Beneath, a ghost story murder mystery movie
Yeah.
starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, I got promoted, so to speak, from concessions to box office. So I was
Box
learning
office?
how to work the computer and sell tickets. There was no monetary raise involved. The additional training just meant that the management could swap people around to cover different jobs as needed. One particular evening, as I was working the box office, a man came in to see a movie.
Oh, yeah.
He was on the tall side and that big sort of pudgy that looks more broad than fat. I smiled, and I launched right into my typical greeting. Hi, welcome to the theater. How can I help you?
By giving me your
I'll
soul!
take one ticket for Lie Beneath Me. Mind you, at this point, I'd heard the movie misnamed a few times.
Okay.
There was something about the way he said it, the way he leaned forward and stared directly at me,
Ew.
that made me vaguely uncomfortable.
Awkwardly sexual.
I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but it didn't seem like an appropriate sort of look for a grown man to be giving a 17-year-old girl.
It also says what lies beneath me.
Nonetheless,
Like,
I maintained my customer service mask, and I
creepy.
pretended I hadn't heard the slip-up, and I handed him his ticket. Here you go, sir. Enjoy the show.
Who's gonna touch your hand?
You want to come watch it with me?
See, I know he's gonna be awkwardly
Still
sexual.
with that stare and an odd smile on his face.
I just realized he made a
A
stupid
smile
innuendo.
that didn't reach
It's like,
his
oh,
eyes.
that's what he meant.
I was starting to wish my trainer was in the box with me, but I was too short to look over to the concessions counter to see if anyone was there to intervene just in case. The only thing I could do was keep up the charade and hope for the best. Sorry, no can do, sir. I have to stay here and sell tickets.
Yeah,
You
son.
enjoy the movie, though.
Yeah.
He stared at me for a few unending seconds,
I'll
then
see you
plodded
later.
off toward the concessions counter. I let out a breath and composed myself, and then I put the smile back on to greet the next customer in line. A couple of hours later, the strange incident is almost forgotten. Almost. I swapped out with a coworker who was going on break and needed someone to cover the ushering for a couple of shows that were about to end,
I thought he was gonna.
including the Ford Pfeiffer flick. Grateful for the break from constant smiling, I grabbed a broom and pickup, and I went to go sweep the aisles and remove trash and spilled popcorn. Let me tell you, Something about being in a movie theater turns even the most fastidious people into complete slobs. I swear it's a sickness. I entered
It's a
the
sickness
theater
you
with
see
the last
in the
guest
YMCA.
leaving,
Okay,
while
I'm
the
sorry.
end credits rolled. As I was picking up trash in the
We're
forward
association.
section, minding my own business.
The guy came behind you and
Who
said
should
hi.
I spy but Mr. Creepy from the box office before?
Oh no, he's perving on you,
His
isn't he?
eyes were fixed directly on me once again. I'd never been leered at so openly in my entire young life. I wanted to bolt for the door right there, but I had a job to
Yep,
do.
you had to clean.
So I kept my head down, and I just hoped that he would leave with the rest of the patrons. But there was no such luck. As I was dumping a load of spilled popcorn into the garbage bin, I heard footsteps behind me, and then a voice far too close for comfort
20
or
more.
manners, said, "Too bad you weren't here. I was the only one in the back row. We could have had some fun."
Ew, no
One of his
thanks.
hands was fumbling deep in his pocket of his khakis. He was breathing hard and staring at me. I gripped my broom and tried to subtly edge away. He moved
Nope.
to block me. My heart jumped in my throat and lodged there. The theater was now empty, and as far as I knew, I was the only one ushering for that show. I was too young and too scared to know what to say or do to get myself out of that situation.
Besides run.
Nothing in our employee orientation had mentioned anything about what to do if you got trapped in a theater with a creepy customer. All I could think was, if he comes any closer, I'll just jab him in the crotch with my broom and run like hell.
Weapon.
Fortunately, at that very moment, a couple of other employees walked into the theater to help with the cleanup. Mr. Creepy yanked his hand out of his pocket and booked it down the steps.
Yeah, get out of here.
Then exited via the fire exit at the front of the
You
theater.
just threw a fire exit?
I was
Dude.
shaking, but I was otherwise unharmed. I didn't know what to say or how to describe what had just happened.
Oh, yeah.
So I said nothing and went back to concessions for the rest of my shift, as soon as I was able. Being around half a dozen other people and the watchful eyes of the office security cameras made me feel a little bit better. When my shift ended, I grabbed my hoodie, put my hood up against the light rain that was starting to come down, and I walked outside into the nearly empty parking lot. I had no car of my own yet, so my mother came to pick me up when I was done for the night. And just like clockwork, she was there in the side parking lot, just beside the entrance. I waved my goodbye to some coworkers who were also leaving at the same time. And then I froze. Halfway down one of the aisles, sitting at the wheel of a large dark-colored SUV, was Mr. Creepy again.
Yeah, well, my mom's here, so you
He
can't
was
get me,
craning
hun.
his neck like he was looking for someone. Without waiting to see more, I booked it over to my mother's car, hoping my hood had hidden my face so that he didn't know it was me. As we pulled out of the parking lot and headed for home, I saw him still sitting there, watching the doors of the theater, as if he was waiting for some unsuspecting young girl to come out.
Cough, cough.
I saw this man a few more times during my tenure at the theater, but I always managed to duck into the storeroom or the break room,
Oh,
or even
finally.
the ladies' toilets
1000.
before he noticed me. So thankfully for me, Mr. Creepy and I never met again. Number 2. The B-Side Hallway. Submitted by Brooke. I was hired on at a movie theater when I turned 16 years old, and I was beyond excited to finally be earning my own money. Besides, I got free benefits like free movie posters and even free movies. My first day was opening night of Captain America: Civil War. It was of course busy, and I already knew just how much work I had gotten myself into. I was ushering, which meant cleaning all the theaters once everyone had left. It was hectic. Most theaters broke within the same 12 minutes, and they were all packed. I had someone with me training me. They chatted me up while we cleaned, showing me which soaps and mops to use in the theater. My theater was divided into 2 sections, A side and B side. A side is on the left when you walk in and has theaters 1 through 6, while B side is on the right, with theaters 1 through 7. Soon our biggest theater, 7, broke.
What?
People poured out from the hallway, leaving behind huge amounts of spilled popcorn and drinks, among other things.
Ew.
Me and my trainer set to work as quickly as we could before the next show was supposed to start. Somehow, ever so casually, my trainer mentioned that someone had died in the theater years ago.
Okay,
Back
thanks.
in the early 2000s.
Trainer, please.
We live in Florida, in a very old people populated area. So when she said a man had died of a heart attack in Theater 8,
Oh, you're like, oh,
I
so he's
kind of
old?
believed her. Besides, over the course of my time working at that theater, I would come to know that many strange and unfortunate injuries would take place there, almost every day. My trainer changed the topic quickly.
Yeah.
The night proceeded on as usual. Everything was going fine. I got off at 11, went
That's what
home,
they always
ate,
say.
and went to bed. Eventually, the time came for me to start ushering alone. Everything went fine for the first few hours of my shift. But when it came time to start cleaning B-side, strange things began to happen. I'd set my porter down to mop the floor, and it would disappear and wind up out in the lobby somewhere.
He's like, get this out of my
Walking
room.
down the steps and feel someone's hands on my back. And
Get
on
outta
one
here.
occasion, I felt those same hands
Push.
shove me forcefully down the steps. I have countless scars on my arms from the amount of rug burn I got from falling onto the floor.
He was probably pissed. He's like, get out of
Still,
here.
I just accounted this as me being my clumsy self, though I couldn't really explain away the feeling of someone else's hands on my body. That felt too real to be made up. Even weirder though, in Theater 8, I would often hear the sound of something dripping, and the emergency door would just open on its own. And yes, the ear-splitting alarm would soon sound.
Oh,
It
rude.
got to the point where I refused to clean that theater by myself. Then it happened.
What?
Opening weekend of Star Wars.
Oh, Star
My friend
Wars.
Ashley and I were cleaning Theater 7. I was changing the trash in the hallway when I saw Ashley staring at me from the first row. What? I asked, turning around. And that's when I noticed it wasn't Ashley.
Oh, shit.
It was a tall, hooded figure, just staring at me.
Ashley,
All the way from the front row.
stop
of the
being
theater.
Star Wars
I
cosplayer.
yelled for Ashley and heard her respond from the very top of the huge theater.
Stop being
After
Palpatine.
that, we both decided to clean as quickly as possible.
It's a
Just get it over
cosplayer.
with.
He's here.
I was terrified and overcome with a feeling of panic. Before we left, we saw a man standing in the projection booth. We asked the manager who was up there, and he said himself that only he had access to it, and he hadn't been up there yet.
The cosplayer hacked
They
into the
let me
room.
off early that night, thank God. And in the elevator going upstairs, I felt uneasy. I began to walk the long, tiny corridor to the
Probably.
employee room, and I heard footsteps squeaking on the floor right behind me. I turned around to see who was following me, but there was no one there. So I picked up speed, and so did they. I sprinted to the computer, clocked out, and I was glad to be out of there when I exited the building. When I finally got trained in box office, I was more than glad to not have to usher anymore. That was until I got a phone call.
Oh,
Hello? I asked cheerfully. A woman on the other end asked me if the movie she was going to see would be playing in Theater 7.
oh yeah.
No, why? I responded after checking the plan for the night. Because, she explained, the last time I was in there, something tried to push me down the stairs.
What?
I've worked here for about a year now, and that same woman always calls before she comes to see a movie. She has to make sure that it's not playing in Theater 7.
Oh, I see. She doesn't want to be in there again.
Number 3. Women at the Cinema.
Oh no,
Submitted
woman
by
at cinema.
Riley G. This story took place a while ago, when Guardians of the Galaxy 2
Guardian?
was in theaters.
Did you say Guardian?
My friend, let's call her Kate, invited me to go see it, because her
Guardians
family
of the
didn't want to.
Galaxy.
I told her sure, and I said I'll pick her up around 1:40 to see the 2:20 show. When we got there, the line wasn't too bad,
Yes.
since the movie had already been in theaters for a while. In front of us, there were two heavier women, and they kept glaring
That's
at
rude.
Kate and I.
Oh, that's even
It was kinda
ruder.
weird and a bit annoying, but I tried to ignore it so I could enjoy the movie. Turns out that they were also going in to see the same movie in the same theater. So I just thought as long as they don't sit near us, it'll be all good.
And they're
I
gonna
won't
sit
have
next
to
to
see
you.
them again. Kate and I found some nice seats, Not too close and not too far away.
The middle?
And of course, guess who decided to sit no more than 3 seats away from us?
And stare at you the whole
When
time?
those women sat down, their conversation took a rather dark turn. Why do the skinny sluts always get the good men? One of them said. The
Oh,
other
great, they're
replied,
sexist.
Wouldn't
they're
it
weird.
Be nice if all these anorexic girls just died?
Okay,
Definitely,
creepy.
the other said. Probably wouldn't take much to break those skinny necks.
Okay, let's record the conversation of
We haven't
harassment.
done anything to these girls at all. They went on and on before the movie started about their hatred for smaller women.
They're not gonna keep talking the whole
Kate
time,
has
are they?
struggled with weight issues in the past. She was bullied for being overweight in elementary school, only to be bullied for being too skinny while we were in high school. Needless to say, she was kind of uncomfortable and a little freaked out.
Yeah.
I assured her I would
It's
try
a
and
movie
protect
theater,
her
what
if
are you
they
doing,
tried anything
crazies?
stupid. About halfway through the movie, Kate had to use the washroom, so she got up and left.
Uh-oh, not gonna
Right
follow, are
after
you?
she got up, one of those pudgy women got up right after her and followed her.
Okay.
I looked over, feeling a bit uneasy, and that woman's friend must have seen me glancing over with a little worry on my face. And she said with a quiet and creepy smile, "What they do in the bathroom is none of your business, so don't even worry about it."
Creepy.
After another minute or so, Kate finally came back with an uneasy look on her face. The movie ended with no incident. Once it's over, Kate explains to me what happened in the washroom.
Did she
One
try to
of the
sexually
larger
harass
women
you?
walked into the washroom behind her and just glared her down when she was washing her hands.
Alright.
Then when she tried to exit the bathroom,
You
the
blocked the
woman
way.
stood in the way of the door and would not move for her when Kate asked her to.
Time to
And
scream!
as Kate approached to squeeze by her, the woman seemed to threaten her. "I could kill you in a heartbeat. You wouldn't even feel it." Kate then lunged herself at the door, between the small opening
Yeah,
of the
screw you,
woman
woman.
and the wall. She managed to squeeze through, and the woman didn't do anything, luckily enough. Freakier yet, when we were walking out to the parking lot to find our car, those 2 women followed us. They weren't even trying to hide the fact that they were following us.
Yeah, well,
They were
let's
only
record
a few
now.
feet behind us the whole time. Instead of confronting these women, who basically threatened us multiple times,
And just
we
leave.
ran to our car as fast
Yeah,
as
nope.
we could, and we hopped inside, locking the doors immediately. But I
Crazies.
think the scariest part, the part that I really honestly didn't expect, was that as soon as we locked the doors, they were outside the car, trying to open the doors.
Stupid
What
woman.
were they trying to do? What if I hadn't locked it in time? We floored it into reverse. I didn't care at this point if I
They
hit
ran him
those
over.
2.
That deserved
I
it.
drove
They did.
well over the speed
I'm just kidding,
limit
don't do that.
to drop Kate off at her house.
Don't do that.
Ever
Like,
since
don't actually
then,
do that.
we haven't gone back to that theater. We don't want to risk running into those creepy women ever again. Number 4. Creepy Man at the Movies. Submitted by Flo.
Flo! Flo from car insurance? Flo, what are you doing?
This happened about 2 years ago. My friend Mads and I were having a fun day at the mall together. There was a new horror movie out.
Okay,
Since
who-
horror
who-
movies are our kind of thing, we decided we would go see it. As we were headed inside the movie theater, we noticed that there was a Hispanic-looking man sitting on one of those
Okay.
black chairs where you can pay and it would massage you. He seemed to be on the
Alright.
phone with someone. Even still, he was intensely staring at my friend Mads.
Oh,
Mads was very, very blonde.
Was
You could
it a
see her
woman?
from a mile
Oh, okay.
away. She
Mads
stuck out
sounds like
like
a
sore thumb.
Matt.
So usually when people look, they're probably just looking at her bright-colored hair. It was so bright that people often asked if she dyed or bleached it, but it was naturally that blonde.
Yeah, I can
so
see that.
again, I just assumed that he was surprised by her hair color. But as we got closer as to walk past, I saw that he
15
wasn't
more.
looking at her head. He was looking at her rear. I
Oh,
rolled my eyes and told Mads to just ignore the guy. So we walked in and waited in line to get tickets. And soon enough, we sparked up conversation about our favorite bands. We were so distracted by our conversation that we didn't see that the man from before had gotten up from his chair and was now directly in line behind us. And before I finally noticed, I
Grabbed
had
her
said
butt.
something stupid. I had spoken out loud, being excited to see the movie, that I was scared to watch it. So he must have heard me say the title of the movie out loud. And as soon as I saw that man standing behind us, I realized just how tall he was. Tall and thin. I
Oh,
swallowed hard,
Slenderman.
hoping that he hadn't heard what movie we were going to. Or maybe he really was just a normal guy and was going to see something else. We finally get our tickets, so we sit down on one of the tables after getting popcorn, and we wait there until we're allowed to enter. While sitting down, I noticed the same guy in the corner. He was eating popcorn as well, and he is literally just staring at us. His eyes don't move from the two of us, and
Creepy.
we're both starting to get freaked out. But we have our tickets, and we don't want to waste the money.
It actually
I
means
was
though.
in denial. Maybe the guy was a little weird, and that was all. But these were warning signs, and I shouldn't have ignored them. Anyway, once we get in the theater, we sit almost
Yeah,
at
if
the
he
top.
just keeps staring at you,
This
then it's like,
same
alright.
guy sits directly behind us. Creepy dude. My friend tells me to move down, so we do. But the man just gets up at the same time and sits one seat behind us again.
Alright, go sit with some other
were
people.
already crowding in, and we didn't see a spot close enough to move to. When the movie began, Mads leaned into me to whisper, "He's just staring at me." I turned and looked at the man, meaning to say something to him to get him to back off. The moment I saw that creepy smile, it crushed all the confidence I had, so I just turned around and tried to focus on the movie. It was difficult though, knowing that that creepy man was looking at us, not the movie, and he was so close. "Let's go to the bathroom," Mads said. I nodded and I took all our stuff with us. When we got into the bathroom, immediately both of us had the same ideas, that we shouldn't go back, that we should just leave the theater.
Okay.
And then suddenly, moments after we walked in, we heard someone walking past the bathroom, and they walked past over and over, as
Uh-oh.
if they were waiting. I knew it was him, and then I heard him talking to somebody. I don't know where they went, in Spanish. I told Mads what he said, and we both began to freak out. Now that I look back, we should have told someone, but I guess
Yeah.
we didn't want to make a scene. Instead, we gathered the courage to switch movies. I know we shouldn't have, but we wanted to make a clean break from this guy. So while he wasn't looking, we snuck into the nearest other theater room and watched some kids' movie. Once that was over,
Pixar.
we went back to the mall area, right by the exit doors to wait for my mother. We honestly thought we had lost the man. We hadn't seen him since we dodged him at the theater. But while we were waiting for my mom to pick us up, I saw him in the mall behind us.
Uh-oh, shit.
He was staring directly at me, and he looked like he was power walking. Slowly his expression seemed to turn to one of anger, and I was scared for my life. My phone then vibrated. It was a text from my mom.
Don't say you're late,
She
please.
was just outside.
Okay, go, go,
The
go,
two
go.
of us took off in a full sprint, and we ran and locked ourselves inside of my mom's car. My mom looked weirded out, but she took off for home all the same. Later on, we told her what had happened, and she was angry with us.
Yeah, what the hell are
She
you
said
doing?
we should have called the cops.
Yeah.
At least called her. That was a dire situation.
Yeah, what the hell are you
And
doing?
Ever since then, she's been a little bit afraid to let us go back to that mall.
Billy,
I
yes.
Don't blame her. So to the creepy dude at the movies, let's not meet again. And number 5, the crazy person at the movies. Submitted by Sam D. This event happened to me and my family a few years ago. I think the image of it will always stay very clear in my mind. It was sometime in 2013. Me and my family lived in Texas in a town known as Beeville. We lived very close to a very small movie theater. It was probably just a 10-minute walk from where we lived. We used to walk there frequently, in fact, but after this incident, we moved to a totally different state. From all that I remember, it was a Friday night. We walked together on the road to the theater, as we always did. We arrived just as usual. We got some snacks, and we went inside the theater room and sat down. At that moment, there were about 3 other people in the theater with us, each sitting a few chairs away. As we patiently waited for the movie to start, my family passed the time by having conversations and playing little games, while of course eating our snacks. Suddenly, there was a loud crash and a chilling scream.
Huh?
It sounded like it was coming from the snack bar. My
Uh-oh.
little sister whispered to me, "What was that?" I
Screaming.
replied something along the lines of, "Probably someone got hurt." A few minutes into the movie, another loud crash suddenly came from the snack bar, except it sounded closer to our movie theater. My parents were whispering, but I couldn't make out what they were saying.
It's a
Probably
shooter?
halfway through the movie, a man comes through the door, talking softly to himself, but it's still loud enough to make everyone's head turn in confusion. My sister whispers in my ear, telling me how funny the guy looks, but I
Rude.
just ignore her. I turn my head towards my parents and see them looking at the movie, so I just relax and watch. A few seconds later, the man starts clapping and laughing, staring at the wall. My sister
Alrighty
and
then,
I
he
thought
might be
this was funny
schizophrenic.
at the time, and we both silently stared at each other and
He's
laughed.
having hallucinations.
After what happened next, our grins soon faded. The man began giggling and stared at one of the people sitting in the room, and I clearly remember the man saying out loud, "I'm going to kill all of you tonight."
Alrighty
The
then.
most disturbing voice I have ever heard. He started to scream and shriek. Then he ran at the person he was looking at.
Oh shit, run, run,
The
run.
person attempted to run, but they failed to do so, and was rammed into by the crazy man. My
Oops.
little sister started to cry, and my parents trying to slowly walk to the exit, gesturing us to follow.
Rude.
I started to panic, and honestly, I was crying. I remember looking back at the disturbing sight of the person screaming as the man began to bite his face. The rest of the people in the theater ran for the exit.
Rude,
making
asshole.
loud footsteps. The crazy man then looked back in their direction and ran, which happened to be our direction too.
Okay.
As we ran out of the theater, we heard the disturbing shrieking from the crazy man coming closer. Out in the lobby, we see two employees crouching behind the snack bar. One of them has bandages on his arm.
Oh,
I
he
could
bit
see
him.
blood seeping through, and the other's on the phone with what must have been the police. We
Can you
ran
imagine that
down
was a
the
zombie?
road out of the theater and ran to the nearest place with people downtown. As we ran, we saw police race by us. Even still, as soon as we saw the police station, we ran inside and made a report. It was insane. That guy was trying to kill people.
And eat
I
them.
don't know what was wrong with him. Maybe he was on drugs or something.
Oh yeah, that happens to
But
people
I'm
on
so
drugs.
glad that he didn't get to attack
Apparently
us.
when you're on bath salts, you start
To this
trying to
day, me
bite
and my
people for some
family
reason.
still remember what happened that Friday night, and we're grateful we got out of there with our lives. What scares me even more was the fact that I never heard
came at
anything
you.
come from this incident, meaning that this man is still at large. How could the police not catch someone who's so crazy? Hey, beautiful people. Thanks for watching. This outro is different today because I'm in the middle of a big move, so I just wanted to say I love you all, and I hope you like and share this video. More videos are on the way, as well as some awesome new t-shirts.
On our
Have a
playlist.
great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Good night. You're never as alone as you think you are. I can see you from the closet as we speak.
Dude, get out of my
This
closet.
world is a strange one.
Dude.
Tonight we are talking about being home alone, and I'm not talking about Macaulay Culkin. I'm talking about something more horrifying. When the adults are gone, and you and maybe a friend as well, find yourself alone in an empty house, you'll witness the strangest and creepiest things. Enjoy these allegedly true Home Alone horror stories. But first, have you ever had a creepy experience while flying? Send us your story soon at deathbyfear.com. We might feature it in a future video.
Ah.
Now, let's see what you do in your alone time that grosses out the people hiding in your closet.
You know the one. Nah, I'm just joking.
Number 1. Cabin
Watch your videos, that's what it is.
Submitted by Vlad.
Vlad, them Paler, what are you doing?
Me and a friend
Almost
of
10
mine,
more. Almost
let's
10.
call him Hunter,
11.
have been close since we met in 2nd grade.
Ooh,
We
Hunter.
both have similar interests, and we agreed on basically everything, apart from ice cream, that is. We were normal friends until about 6th grade. We both go to a private school, and my friend's mother is basically never at home.
Oh.
She's always on business trips and things like that. She's away for months at a time. And his father, excuse my French, is a piece of crap.
Oh, shoot.
He's always drunk.
Oh, no.
Honestly, if you ask me, I have
Not drunk
no
God.
idea why his parents are still together. But anyway, around 6th grade, Hunter's father's drinking problem got even worse.
Uh-oh.
It got to the point where he had started to abuse Hunter,
Oh, shit.
both verbally and physically.
Oh, they're gonna say
My
sexually. I was
parents
like, oh,
soon found
murder.
out about this. From that point on, Hunter basically comes and stays at our house when
Yep,
things go
he's our
south.
kid now.
Even now, as we're both 15. Things are so bad that sometimes he doesn't even have time to pack his bag with clothes. Everything of value he owns is at my place because he doesn't trust his
Yeah.
father to not break them or sell them. I really
For
feel
drugs.
bad for his situation, but I'm glad that my family is there to help. And luckily, we both
Your
have the
family's
same
awesome, dude.
physique, so clothing isn't an issue. Some of you might find that odd or disgusting, but he's like a brother to me. I would do anything for him. We're both single children in different situations.
Anything like not weird.
Well, one year, it was the first week
Like
of
stripping
summer
from him.
vacation. And for some reason, my parents decided that it would be fun to go to our chalet in the mountains.
What's a chalet?
Now, let me explain, since it will be important to the story. Basically, we have a chalet that can
Yay.
comfortably house 14 people. It
14.
has
Nice.
an indoor pool, outdoor hot tub, a home cinema, a gaming room, etc. And there's a ridiculous amount of closets, both walk-in and normal. If someone were to break in and hide in the house, it would be a real dangerous pain to find them.
Because there's
So
too many
we were
rooms.
going to the chalet, and we gladly invited Hunter to join us.
Is his dad
We
gonna
were
break
both
in and be
really
like, where's my son?
We were even happier to learn that my parents were going to leave us alone for basically the first week. They apparently had some business to take care of before they would join us. So we were excited to be home alone, to enjoy a well-needed getaway.
Why would you be happy about that? I wouldn't be happy about that.
Eventually, we arrive at the chalet. My parents drop off our stuff, and then they drove away, saying they'd be back. They said to
10
keep safe and keep everything
Oh, it's
well
almost
before they're
10,000.
back. And
10,000
we were alone,
calls.
just like that, for 6 whole days. In a chalet with a dedicated gaming room.
Probably
Basically, it was
Let's
heaven
see.
for both me and Hunter.
quite a while.
Little did we know that heaven was going to soon turn into hell.
Bloop, bloop, bloop.
We go inside the house, and we leave our stuff in our room. We prepare for a night of video games and movies. My first mistake is when I open the window on the first floor.
Oh, shoot.
It was
First.
just a little to let in some air.
Ooh, that
I
sounds
thought
gonna break
nothing
in
of
that.
it, because it has a safeguard that blocks it from opening any further without pressing some obscure button on the inside. We begin to play at around 6 p.m., and we take a break at 8 p.m. Well, I take a break. I pass the window that I had opened before,
It was wider.
yet somehow it's now fully open.
Whoa!
Stupid teenager me thinks that I had opened it completely before,
Oh,
and that nobody could possibly climb in through the giant balcony that was actually very low to the ground. I didn't once assume that we weren't alone.
wonderful. Yeah, alright, good.
This is where the fun begins.
Fun.
I close the window, go to the bathroom, and I take a water bottle from the kitchen back to us for future use. We continue to play our games after that for about 30 minutes without interruption, and after 30 minutes goes by, we begin to hear a scratching sound from somewhere in the house.
Wonderful.
We pass it off as some animal scratching
Demon.
outside, just really loudly. So we get back to our games, until Hunter says something which still gives me chills. He asks me why I put my hand on his shoulder.
No,
He had the lights turned off, and he was concentrating very hard on the game. We were playing Call of Duty Zombie Survival, and as it was his turn, I was just watching and relaxing. Hopefully, none of you will ever in your lifetime feel that feeling of dread in your stomach,
you know?
that feeling that you are being hunted in your own home, a place you're supposed to feel secure. I
Alright,
turned to
music,
Hunter,
please.
And, indeed, there is a hand on his shoulder.
Oh,
And
no.
it's a hand that isn't mine.
Well, I hope not,
I'm
otherwise
so
you're
scared
confused where your
and
hands are.
surprised that I'm paralyzed. The man that's behind him is wearing all black, and his
Robber.
face is hidden by the hood of his jacket. My friend screams when he notices that it's not my hand. I take action first. I jump up, pulling Hunter by the hand. I hear his shirt rip as we both run out of that room. We hear this stranger behind us. Everything's so dark, I'm easily able to lose him in my house. Luckily, even if it's pitch black, I know where I'm going. It's a lot like a maze if it's your first time here. I pull Hunter up the stairs to the second floor with me, There is a sort of living room. We crouched down behind the couch.
Yeah, turn it again.
But every second that passed, I felt more and more like we were about to die. We hear those footsteps getting closer, and then they stop at the entrance to this living room. He whispers out loud enough for us to hear. You boys have nice skin.
Okay.
I want to see more.
Nope.
Please, may I?
No. No, you
My
can't.
hand is shaking, and I'm paralyzed. He starts to step closer.
Nope.
getting
Okay, it's a
straight for the
rapist.
couch which we're behind.
Nope, nope, no,
He
thanks.
whispers again. I know where you are.
Okay.
I know the layout of this house. You can run, but I will find you.
Okay.
Tears are flooding down my eyes. I was so sure that this was the end, but I wasn't about to give up without a fight. We both bolt, luckily in the same direction, towards the exit.
Yeah,
And
nope, out.
immediately he starts after us, and he's keeping up.
Shit.
We pass a large cabinet, which I push over to block the path. It slows the man down, but only for a moment. We turn the corner and run up to the third floor, the floor with bedrooms, the floor with our bags and phones. Hunter runs to our room, but I stop him, and we run to a guest room,
Nice.
which has a really low bed with low covers.
Oh.
It has a type of storage box underneath it, which you can open with a secret button located underneath the frame of the bed.
Wow, you have a lot of
I
secret
open
things
it,
in there.
and we crawl inside. I close the door.
Nice.
The covers of the bed cover the top of that door. We remain there for a small while, working on getting our breathing under control, because, as it was, we were breathing like crazy. Soon we hear that man thundering up the stairs. He's panting, and he shouts in the hallway. I can smell you.
Okay.
It's nice. It's only a matter of time before I catch you.
Okay, you
And
rapist.
I'll make you mine.
Okay, definitely a rapist.
Hunter whimpers and starts to hyperventilate. It's loud. We don't have anything to stop it or stifle his breathing. We try to cover our faces with our shirts, but it doesn't work. We can hear the man moving closer, and with each step, Hunter's breathing gets worse. I then try to do the last thing possible. I try to comfort him. I try to mimic my parents. I put my arm around him, and I tell him that it will be alright, that we'll get through this. And amazingly, it works. I wasn't putting much faith into it, though. I continued to hold on to him, if only because it was helping me calm down as well. Then the door to the guest room we were hiding in bangs open.
Shit.
Hunter holds me even tighter. His face is pressed against my neck. There's wetness on my skin. He's crying too, and he's trembling, but he's completely quiet now. Suddenly, the man begins to ransack the room, overturning furniture and generally destroying the place, searching for us. He grunts in frustration the entire time.
Oh, he doesn't
and emits
know.
a growl of frustration at the end that chills me
Oh!
to the bone. The man sounds like a wild animal, not some normal, decent human being. It sounds more like something a young, petulant kid would do. The fact that he's a grown man makes this more
Creepy.
disturbing. Soon,
I mean,
after
the
he
rapes
seems
are
to not
disturbing.
be able to find us, he runs out of the room and starts to climb up to the 4th floor. Our bags are on this floor, and our phones are there.
Oh, go for
but
it.
we'd still be close to where he is.
Oh, you're
We have
true.
an alarm system, one that we didn't know we needed to arm while we were here alone.
Shoot.
Stupid, I know. If we could go downstairs and trigger that alarm ourselves, maybe the sound of it would scare the man off, and at the very least, it would call the cops.
But he would know where you
So
were,
we
though.
open the door, and we begin to tiptoe downstairs.
Great, he's gonna hear
I
you.
open the protective cover with the house key, and I look at it. There's the magic button on the alarm system. The home invasion alarm button. I press the button, not hesitating a moment, and in an instant, that ear-splitting sound shrieks through the house. And that's when I realize that if
He knows
doesn't
where you
run,
are.
we can no longer hear him coming towards us. So basically, we won't know where he's at until help comes. I close the
Oh.
lid, and I lock it. We start to the edge along the wall towards the main living room. We want to escape via the huge glass sliding door.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
The
whoa,
last
whoa, whoa.
thing I recall, before everything goes black, is a sharp pain on the back of my head. The rest of the story is from what Hunter said happened.
Oh, Hunter was still
He was
awake?
the only one conscious for the rest of it. The man had apparently snuck up behind us, and hit me in the head with a rolling pin from the kitchen.
God damn it.
I fell to the floor, and my friend is there rooted to the spot. Our chances of getting away were gone. The man grabs Hunter, holds him painfully against the wall.
Uh-oh.
Hunter says the man is constantly licking his lips,
Oh, okay.
as if we're food to him.
And he wanted to
With
rape
the
you.
alarm blaring in the background, the man presses his body against Hunter, who is pinned against the wall, and he's breathing as heavily as we were, but for the most sickening reasons. He begins to sniff Hunter's face, his hair, his neck. Then he gets up close to Hunter's ear and says, "So good.
Oh,
I'll
great.
have to see you guys another time, though."
Ugh.
With that, he literally throws Hunter on the floor, then exit through the sliding glass door that we were getting to. The police arrive less than 2 minutes later, and they take us both to the hospital. Apparently, if the man would have hit me any lower on the head than he had, my skull could have fractured, and I would have had terrible, maybe even permanent, damage. Luckily, I had a concussion and a bit of bleeding, but I would be fine. The police never found out who the man was, and even with our help and description, they couldn't find him. I doubt they ever even got a lead. It absolutely terrifies me that he might do this again, if not to us, to someone else. Whoever he is, he seems to be after children. What he wants exactly with them, I can only guess.
What do you mean you can only guess? He obviously
Now
wants to
has a
rape
gun
you.
license, and he keeps a pistol in the house at all times. I feel only a little bit safer, though. That night was the worst night of my life.
Yeah, don't leave your windows
I
open,
could have
dude.
been killed or worse. What kind of sick torture did this man have in mind for us before ultimately killing us, probably slowly? Hunter and I are
Well,
now more inseparable than we used to be.
Yep.
He spends most of his time at my house still. It took
Awesome.
more than a half a year for us to convince him to share this story, since he feels what happened that night was too personal and private.
Yeah,
It
very
was a big
personal and
step
private.
helping us get past this. It was truly a traumatizing experience, but I sincerely hope that someone catches this man.
Yeah, the crazy bitch.
Number 2, Home Alone, Not Really.
Okay, that's spooky.
Submitted by
That's a good title.
Someone 226.
Someone 226. Beautiful.
I'm 14 years old, and I live in the capital city of Estonia. I live in a
Estonia?
4-room apartment with my parents, my sister, my brother, and my dog. My mom and her parents moved into this place when she was about 5 years old. Now, my mom told me that when she was about 8, she was eating breakfast in the kitchen, and she was home alone. At the time, there were no TVs, computers, and not even phones, at least not here in Estonia. She was just listening to the radio. At the moment, she heard the door handle begin to move.
Oh, okay.
She turned around, and the handle was going up and down on its own.
Yeah,
If
because
someone
someone's
really
trying
was
it.
there trying to get in, she would have seen it.
What do you
as
mean?
The door had a large window built into it that you could
Oh,
see through,
okay.
but she didn't see anything. She just watched the door handle
If there's a
continue
window
to
on it,
jiggle.
then I understand.
When I was old enough to stay home alone, I was excited. I thought I could do anything I wanted, eat as much candy
Give me a
as I
second.
liked, so on. But that all changed. Only when I was alone did I hear things falling or moving. I always called my parents, and when they came home, nothing was moved from its place. But I swear I heard things. My dad believed me, but my mom was a bit skeptical. I heard these things often, and that really scared me. But I brushed it off as I was just imagining it. What really
Sorry.
creeped me out is that whatever was making these sounds would make sure to only make the noise if I was the only one in the house.
Alright, that
Throughout
ghost is
the day
trolling
when
you now.
everyone was home, those sounds were non-existent, and I was soon afraid to be home alone anymore. I didn't have the dog yet, so I never felt safe being at the house. During the summers, I would usually sit on a bench outside, waiting for my parents to come home before I went in myself. During the autumn and winter, I would just sit at the hallway, a small room that leads to the apartment. Why that room felt safe to me was because I could run out in a second if I needed to. I felt safe because the room was so small, and I was the only one definitely in it. Now, this experience happened when I was 12. It was an autumn evening. I was just arguing with my mom about something. I
Yeah.
walked into my room, slammed the door, Then I lay in my bed and I cried. I was crying so hard. And then I heard a whisper, literally right next to me. It was someone hushing me, as if they were trying to calm me. It was so loud and vivid, it scared the life out of me. I jumped up and
they
went out of
tried.
the room, covered in goosebumps.
Well, they
I
like
told
you.
my mom what just happened. She rolled her eyes, probably still angry with me, and said it was probably just the neighbors.
The
I can
neighbors?
swear on my life,
Gotta be kidding me.
it was like another person was next to me. I could even feel their breath against my ear. I was not going to sleep in my room that night, so after much convincing, I slept in my parents' room. Things only got worse, and only when I was home alone. I heard things fall over and over again. When I waited in the hallway, I heard whispering coming from the other side of the house door. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but the tone of it, it sounded like it was beckoning me inside, as if it wanted me to come in.
I want you to be
I
friends.
wasn't about to do that. What made my mom believe that this was real was when my little sister began to see things. She was about 3 at the time. One time she woke up in the middle of the night crying. My mom went to check on her, and my little sister asked, "Why is the man standing there?" Then she pointed toward the wall.
Great.
My mom slowly turned and checked, and there was no one there. That happened several times in the middle of the night, when my sister saw shadows and moon women, as she liked to call them.
Moon woman, excuse me.
When I asked her about the moon women, she said, "Don't worry, she isn't bad. She won't hurt you.
Yeah, she likes
She
you.
just comes to check on me sometimes."
Yeah, like the
Being
person
a
who
kid
shushed
that
you.
age, I told myself she was just making it up, right? I didn't believe it, though. My mom called some psychics to come over and
Great.
see if they can see or
Psychics.
sense anything in the house. One of them said they could. They explained that our house had an opening where spirits were coming through. Being a bit skeptical of psychics, I wasn't sure if I believed them, but we searched the place for a good 30 minutes to see if we could feel any stronger presences in certain spots. We ended up encircling a small mirror that I had brought home one day. They said that that was the portal. We were told that we had to smash that mirror broken, so even basically the closer. After she was done with that, she would lock up and come home.
The internet connection is so
Anyway,
spotty right
while
now.
she
What the
was
hell?
at work, I would clean up the house, and after completing the housework, I would go upstairs to watch TV or play games. I was so terrified by this event that I remember the exact day that it happened. It was the 7th of October, and I was home alone. I was doing my chores when I heard a single heavy knock at the door. Not the front door, it was the back. It was weird, and I thought to myself, I was sure that I locked the gate. I walked over to the door, and our door has a big glass pane on it, so I can see if there's a figure outside at the very least. But as I walked over, there was no figure there. When I saw that, I convinced myself that it was just something hitting the door. It was very windy outside that day, so I went back to cleaning. Only a few minutes later, my cat began to hiss at that very same door. The house was pretty big, so it took me quite a few seconds to reach the door. When I got there, he was going crazy at it, so I let him out. After that, nothing eventful really happened, except when the crap hit the fan. I went ahead and let the cat back in. When I opened the door, it ran inside, like a dog was after it. Its fur was on end, and it was going full speed. It was weird, but I still wasn't letting it get to me. So I went upstairs to play games when something literally speed-walked past my door and down the hall. I froze, listening for the sounds of intruders in my home. Seconds later, my brother's bedroom door slammed shut, and the cat was frantically meowing and clawing at the door. I rushed to the room, and the door would not open. We had no locks on that door, and it scared me so much that I sprinted to my grandma's house. She only lives a street away. I didn't know what was going on. All I did know is that there was someone or something in that room, holding the door shut. I waited until my mom got home, then I shouted every detail of what happened at her. She came home and ran upstairs to my brother's room. The door was open when she got there. In fact, every door was open upstairs, and each was open the same degree, as if some stranger had opened every door, then precisely angled it. It was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. When she walked back over to me, she had a very mad expression on her face. She accused me of making it up to scare my little brother. Of course, I denied it. but she was still suspicious of me. The next day, my mom was working until 7 that night, and I didn't forget a bit of what happened the previous day. I was on edge, finishing up cleaning the pots. Every second I was glancing over my shoulders. I went upstairs and watched a movie to try to get my mind off of things. About halfway into the movie, I fell asleep, and I woke up to the sound of glass shattering into pieces. I ran to the stairs to see what the noise was, when I saw that exact same figure from before. It walked past me and went toward the stairs, and never even acknowledged that I was there. Afraid but curious, I went down and I screamed as I saw every cupboard and drawer was open, and so was the door. All the dishes were broken, and I mean the floor was drowning in broken glass. But this time, when I told my mother what happened, she believed me. She knew I wasn't crazy, and only a crazy person would smash all that glass. It's been 4 months, and nothing else has happened, except for the other day. Because I came home from school to see my mom's face, which was completely shocked. She said that she was getting ready for work when she saw the figure pass in front of her.
Wonderful.
Whatever it is, it's still here.
And it's still screwing with you, apparently.
And number 4. Creepy Home Alone Experience. Submitted by Anonymous Entity. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm not completely sure if this is paranormal or not. This experience is somewhat confusing, as I really don't know who or what is causing it. Some years ago, when I was 12, I was left home alone. It was a snow day on the Tuesday after February vacation. The funny thing is, though, that there was barely any snow that day. The real danger here was the mud. So my parents left home around 9 o'clock. They own a company together, so they weren't even thinking about calling it a day just because of the mud. I simply went to my bedroom, turned on the TV, and looked on my phone. I was watching YouTube and playing games. Before I knew it, I fell asleep for a nap. At around 10 that morning, I woke up. I continued on my phone, when a few minutes later, I heard something. I brushed this off as another house noise, as I get lots of those. Sometimes the house settles, sometimes it creaks beneath your weight, things like that. Believe me, you do not know how much I overreacted from a simple cup falling. But these noises began to get suspicious at around 11:15, and it was at that time that I had to use the bathroom. I walked over to it.
Of course you move out of the way, you stupid shark.
Now my room is a bit of a passageway between the upstairs hall and the hall leading to the west, where the staircase is. My room is directly to the left at the top of the east staircase. So basically, if someone did break in, I'd be the first one dead. My back door leads to the west side, and directly across from the door is my bathroom. As I opened my back door, I heard walking on the first level. It was directly below me, where the kitchen would be.
Please figure out who's going toward it.
The footsteps were stopping, and they stopped literally right below me where I was. After I heard that, I decided I could hold my bathroom break, so I shut my back door and waited in bed, listening. After the suspense got to me, I yelled out to whoever it was to get out of here. And I did. I heard an even louder boot or something stop at the bottom of my east stairwell. I literally flew out of my bed. I rushed to my defenses and barricaded my door. I grabbed a lamp and an old racket toy as weaponry. I heard yet another stomp up the staircase, coming closer to my room. I was beginning to cry. I called my parents and my
Stop
best
running
friend,
away from the ball,
because his
please.
mother worked for my mom. Of course, my friend and his mother were the first to answer. They assured me that my mom was on her way. My nearby neighbor, who was a tenant on our land, said she'd come by as well. By now it was 11:30. I finally heard the door open after what felt like hours. My name was called by our tenant, and after a minute or more crying, I felt safe enough to give out my location. She walked to my room and I opened the back door for her. I was so relieved and finally looked out of the room, preparing myself. Nothing had been stolen, but my tiny storage room door was wide open, and some extra toilet paper rolls had fallen out. The scariest clue
Plot twist,
came
he just
when I
wanted to
went
help
down
you.
the kitchen, where I had heard the first stomp. I saw one pair of wet, muddy footprints that looked to belong to a 15-inch boot.
Plot
None of
twist,
my
he just
family
wanted to give you
members
toilet
wore that
paper.
size, nor was it their boots. We don't know who or what it was, but we were sure by then that someone had broken in, and better yet, someone had come painfully close to my bedroom door. My mom assumed it was some drunk that broke in for a place to stay or rest, but even if it was paranormal, I might believe it, because in the past I know a few people have died here.
Like I said, plot twist, he just wanted to give you toilet paper.
The worst people, the worst things, they're always watching for their chance to strike. So when the cars are gone from the driveway, and most of the lights are off in the house, it is a very obvious invitation for trouble.
For more.
Even if you're still inside, completely unaware that your death could be imminent. To those things wanting inside, you're simply an annoyance, and when they find you, you will be dealt with. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to send us your flying and airplane scary stories soon at deathbyfear.com. Thanks. Do you want more scary stories? Well, become a member at deathbyfear.com to gain access to 20 bonus episodes so far. Plus, it supports this channel. What happens when you need to run for your life, but you're still on the clock? Screw it, that's what. This
Screw the
world
clock.
is a strange one. Working can be stressful enough. The last thing you need are creeps and psychos stopping by to get a little too close. And if it's not creeps trying to harass you or more, it's spirits that want to make those 8 hours drag by as slowly as possible. Enjoy these allegedly true retell scary stories. But first, have you ever had a creepy experience at the movies? Send us your story at deathbyfear.com. I'd love to read your story in a new video. Now, forget the 2 weeks notice. 2 seconds is plenty of time to get the heck out of there. Number 1. Crazy customer from hell.
Oh no, not
Submitted
them
by
again.
Anonymous. I work in the retail business. Anyone who's worked in retail knows you get a lot of different types of people, and they're not always good. A little bit of backstory. So years ago, my ex and I would either have to take a bus or walk to get around. Sometimes my mom would drive us. We didn't have a car back then, nor did we have our licenses.
Ooh.
Fast track years after, I had well since broken up with that dirtbag of an ex. For the record, I don't live across town, and I don't walk where I need to go anymore. I use other sources of transportation. So one day, I was working when this tall, creepy man around his 50s came in. Right away, the guy reminded me of Slender Man. He was tall, lanky, with a bald head.
Damn it! Stop
I'd
it!
seen him a few times in the store, and at the moment he was in my line, staring at me. And I mean, he wasn't breaking contact. He was even leaning forward, trying to get a better look at me. I have no idea why he was so completely fixated on me. I was really uncomfortable and trying to ignore it. I was both dreading having to deal with him and just wanting to get it over with. I glanced back at him, and he was staring still, intently. He seemed angry and unstable. When he finally got to my register, I decided to look down and quickly process everything as he was still staring. I peeked up and looked at him. I asked him for the specific card that we accept at our store. He narrows
Specific?
his eyes at me and then leans forward. He's not yelling, but he says in a very loud and very serious tone, "You never thanked me."
What?
I looked
Who
at
are
him
you?
like, what the heck are you talking about?
Who are you?
And then I asked him, what do you mean? He repeats again, even more stern. "You never thanked me. You never thanked me." I'm
Okay.
freaked out and a little bit angry.
Creepy.
I say, "What are you talking about?
Who are you?
I have no idea what you mean."
Also, who are you?
But then he snaps again. "The ride I gave you and your boyfriend, you're ungrateful. You never thanked me and it upset me. You'll never get another ride from me again. But I see you
Okay.
two walking, and I sometimes think I'll be nice and offer you another ride. But you don't deserve it. You can walk, but you never thanked me.
Who are you?
I'm shocked at this point, angry and weirded out. This psycho has never given us a ride.
Yeah, who are
I
you?
looked him dead in the eye, and I said in a clear, stern tone, I never take rides from strangers, and neither did my ex. We never got into anyone's car, except for my mother's, and I broke up with my boyfriend years ago. I'm currently single. Not that that's any of your business, so it wasn't me or him. And even if by some random chance he took a ride from you, I wasn't with him.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen. He gets even angrier and more demanding, almost full-out yelling now. Come on, how can you not remember? It was a few weeks ago, and it was pouring rain outside. You two were walking. I saw you because I was watching you. I thought I'd be nice and offer you a ride.
Who the hell are you?
Also, before I drove
Are you a
home,
ghost?
you wanted to stop at Subway. That's where you were going, Subway. I said okay, and we stopped there. Eventually, you both came out, and I drove you home. I remember when you both got out and slammed the door and never said thank you.
Who the hell are you?
Nothing. It was so rude. And I'll never give you another ride again. It was pouring rain. I was watching you.
Okay, I think you're
kept
crazy.
repeating the same freaking thing over and over again.
You sure it was a
pouring
ghost?
rain. He was watching us.
Okay,
I could feel
that's
chills
enough.
spreading over my whole body. I was beyond angry, and I snapped. No, I don't remember, because it never happened. It's impossible that this happened a few weeks ago, like I said. I'm single, and I broke up with him years ago. You hear that? Years ago. So it wasn't us, and it definitely wasn't me. And I would never take a ride from a total stranger like you. He steps back a bit. His face is now twisted in offense and anger. He twists his neck in a weird manner, looks back up, and then rushes forward at me. I back up, and people are looking at him like he's deranged.
He is
He's
deranged.
now screaming. Look, I gave you two ungrateful brats a ride, and I know that I did. So don't you tell me what I did or didn't do. I know where you live, too. I see you all the time, walking by, walking right up to your door. It was pouring rain.
Okay,
I was watching you.
stop it.
I couldn't take this anymore. I shook my head. I thought, okay, management isn't around at the moment, and this psycho is not going to let up. So I'll just play his freaking game. I'll thank him so he can finally screw off. I put on a fake smile and said, okay, alright, I'm sorry. You did give us a ride. I apologize for not thanking you. So, sincerely, thank you. We were very ungrateful and impolite, you're right.
Okay.
We won't be accepting or asking you for any more rides. I'm sorry and thank you. He was right up in my face, eyes wide, and veins in his head looking like they're about to burst. I needed to defuse the situation. This guy was really tall, and I didn't know what he wanted to do with me. What if he had something in his pocket? With one flick of the wrist, I'd be bleeding out. But somehow those eyes grow even more wide, and he's still even angrier. Then he booms at me. Now you're trying to play these little games with me. You're trying to confuse me or throw me off like I'm stupid. That's alright, because it's over now. It doesn't matter. It's too late for you. I just wanted you to know that.
Okay, he's gonna come in
Enjoy
and murder in your
your
sleep.
day. It was pouring rain.
Okay.
I was watching.
Stop it,
He
crazy
then turns and
bitch.
storms out of the store, still blabbing about his bullcrap. I breathe a sigh of relief. I'm shocked over what just happened. Fast forward a bit, a month later or so, and I'm at work. And guess who sees me and steps into my line again?
Oh, that crazy bitch again?
Yep, this freaking nut job. Great. I was hoping someone could let me out of the check stand so I could leave temporarily, but everyone was busy, of course. So I was cornered. This time, though, he was looking down, and once he got to my register, I say nothing. I finished putting his stuff through the scanner, and I grabbed the bill. He then looks
Is he
up
gonna
at
say he's crazy again?
rips the bill from my hand violently before I can put it down, and he storms off muttering to himself angrily.
It is raining.
What a creep, I think. About 3 or 4 hours later, when my shift finally ends and it's dark outside, I see him in the parking lot as I'm heading home, and he's just staring at me. He has 2 hands in the same pocket, as if he's gripping something, thinking about using it, and he's shaking. When I saw that, I freaked out and just ran. I called my mom begging for a ride. Luckily, that's the scariest it ever got, so far. Presently, I see him from time to time. In fact, the last time he came through my line, he was smiling wide at me, staring and acting overly joyful. Perhaps he recently gave my ex and I a ride, and we finally thanked him. Whatever delusion floated his boat. Looking back on it, I should have told management. But I've had my fair share of so many weirdos and creeps that I figured that I might as well just deal with it by myself. He could have been banned from the store, unless he threatened me or got physical, so I figured it was kind of pointless. I didn't want to be seen as whiny. It's just very unsettling to know that people like that are walking the streets every day. I hope we never meet again. Stay away from me. I don't care if it's pouring rain and you've been watching.
He really needs to stop.
Number 2. Creeper at the grocery to bring your groceries to
Forgot
your
I need
car
2
for
more
you,
games.
like many places do. It was a normal shopping trip in the beginning, nothing out of the ordinary. We turned down an aisle when I realized that we had walked right by the hamburger buns, and I had forgotten to grab some. They were about 15 feet away from me, so I asked Dana to run and grab some real quick while I worked on getting what I needed in that aisle. I watched her go, and she came back with a really odd look on her face. I asked her immediately what was wrong. She looked up at me and told me that while she was walking there was an older man staring at her, and he winked at her. I sighed in annoyance, not at my daughter, but at the old man. I told her to just ignore it and never respond to people like that. I even tried to make light of the situation to try to calm her down, because I could see in her eyes that she was a bit disturbed by it. We continued on shopping. When we turned down an aisle that had no one in it, Dana looked at me with a very concerned look on her face. She told me that she was sure that that creepy man from before was now following us. I asked her to point him out for me, so that I could keep an eye out for him as well. We went down a few more aisles, and sure enough, that man was around every corner. It was a Hispanic man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair. He didn't look creepy at all. He just looked normal. We were almost done getting everything that we needed when I turned down one last aisle, and of course, there was the creepy guy. For several aisles now, he had followed us, entering the aisle at the same time as us. I was certain at this point that it wasn't coincidence.
Yeah, at that point.
This time, he was actually blocking the aisle so that we couldn't get by. Me, being as polite as possible, I said, "Excuse me, sir," and I waited for him to move his cart. Instead of moving, he stared at us and said, "Hi, how are you?"
Okay.
I said that we were
Creepy.
fine, and I nicely asked him to move his
Please
cart
move.
so that we could get by. He moved it this time, and we continued down the aisle. When we were about 5 feet away from him, he then said, "It's not polite to not ask how I am." I said that I was sorry, and just kept walking.
Well, you moved out of the way,
He
ho.
then said that it was late, so we should be sleeping. I just gave him an odd look, and said, "Okay," and quickly pushed my daughter ahead of me, and just kept walking. That was a weird thing for him to say. It was only about 6 p.m. after all. But I also noticed at that point that he had nothing in his cart. It was as if he didn't need the cart at all,
One
that
more.
he wasn't there to buy anything. Now, I was a
Except
bit
your
freaked
love.
out
Okay, I'm
and
sorry.
a little suspicious. We quickly moved to another aisle, where there were 4 or 5 other people shopping. I figured that he would leave us alone if there were other people around. We were done with our shopping at this point, but I didn't want to risk being stuck in line with this creep, seeing as they only had one register open. I watched him out of the corner of my eye, and I saw that he was finally heading to the register.
Okay.
I breathed a sigh of relief, because he would finally be gone soon, away from us. I didn't know then how wrong that was. We watched him pay for his stuff, and then he headed out of the store.
Right, okay, he's
So we
gone.
went up to the register, thinking we were now in the clear. At the register was a nice girl who we have talked to quite a few times before. I made small talk with her, and then I asked her about that man. She said that he didn't really say anything to her, but she said that he did seem a little off. It was at that point that my daughter tightly grabbed me by the arm.
He's watching by the window,
and
isn't he?
said, "Oh my God, Mom! He's outside the window, and he keeps waving at me."
Okay,
I looked
creepy.
over at the large window in the front of the store, and sure enough, that guy was in his black truck that was parked alongside the windows, and he was waving at my daughter. I was done.
Okay,
I had
creepy.
the cashier look over. She was getting freaked out too. I asked if there was any employee that could walk us out to our car, because it was dark outside, and we were parked a ways away. She called over the walkie-talkie to her manager and asked if we could have a male employee walk us out and explain the situation.
Crazy
We
hoes
pulled our car
staying
to
outside the
the
door.
windows and proceeded to bag up our groceries while we were waiting for the employee to walk us out. 2 men showed up and waited for us. When we were done, we all walked outside, and no sooner than we reached the beginning of the parking lot, we saw that same black truck speed off.
Oh,
Apparently, he saw that we were not alone and just gave up. We made it to our car safely. The whole way home, we were on edge. We constantly kept an eye out for the black truck to make sure that we weren't being followed. This was the most vulnerable I've ever felt, personally. I realized when I got in the car that I had no way to defeat that,